Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this WhatIf story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐼𝐼𝐬𝐸 on Wattpad. Now let's start. The prestigious hero school known as 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲 was enveloped in a gloomy atmosphere that affected nearly everyone within its walls. 3 years prior, the school had made a grave error by mistakenly labeling one of its top students, Izuku Midoriya, affectionately known as the school's cinnamon roll, as a traitor. Instead of addressing the situation appropriately, the faculty jumped to conclusions. Nizu informed both Class 1A and Class 1B of the situation, giving them an hour to react. Anger simmered among the students as they awaited Izuku's return. After 20 minutes, he arrived back from the store, only to be confronted by both classes. They overwhelmed him with their fury, attacking him relentlessly and shattering his mental state with hurtful remarks. The scene was chaotic, and the emotional toll was evident as they unleashed their pent-up frustrations. Just then, Nizu arrived with the staff and police. All Might, Izuku's father, reclaimed one for all from him, declaring him a disgrace to the Yagi family. Inko, Izuku's mother, coldly disowned him, expressing that she would not care if he were to disappear. Izuku felt as though his entire world was crumbling, the laughter of former friends and the cruel taunts deepening his anguish. Nizu instructed the police to take Izuku away, but before they could act, a portal opened beneath him, whisking him away and leaving everyone in shock. They had truly believed him to be the traitor. Nizu then dispatched the staff and students to search for Izuku, but after months of fruitless searching, some gave up hope. However, others, like Katsuki and Izumi Yagi, remained determined to find Izuku and confront him. 3 years passed, and the world seemed to settle until a sudden attack on the city by All For One and the League of Villains disrupted the peace. Pro-heroes rushed to battle, and the clash between All Might and All For One was fierce. All For One taunted All Might, suggesting he had grown weaker and questioning why he had not found a successor. All Might, filled with resolve, retaliated with a punch that All For One caught effortlessly, countering with a backhand that sent All Might flying. As the battle raged, All For One mocked All Might's decline, while All Might pressed for answers about a certain brat. The tension escalated as All Might accused All For One of planting a mole within you. The revelation hung in the air as All Might revealed the name, Izuku. The pro-heroes and the League of Villains paused, shocked by the revelation. Silence enveloped the battlefield as All Might's words sank in, leaving All For One and the others in disbelief. Shigaraki, Mirko, 𝗟𝗶𝐻, and Toga exchanged bewildered glances, grappling with the implications of Izuku's alleged betrayal. Twice felt a wave of confusion wash over him, while Endeavor questioned All Might about what he was referring to. AFO expressed genuine curiosity, wanting to understand the situation better. All Might, however, insisted that AFO was aware of the truth, revealing that the spy among them was actually 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷. The pros were taken aback, having no idea that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 had a traitor in their midst, but All Might was hit especially hard by this revelation. Shigaraki confirmed the shocking news, explaining that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 had approached them one night, offering information in exchange for money to escape Japan. 𝗟𝗏 recognized 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 as one of the students from Class 1A, and Edge Shot agreed. Night Eye confronted All Might, questioning why he had accused Izuku of being the traitor, asserting that he would never choose a villainous path. 𝗟𝗏 echoed this sentiment, demanding to know what All Might was thinking. All Might struggled to respond, overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation. 𝗟𝗏, frustrated, questioned his actions, while All Might broke down in tears. The pros were concerned, and the League of Villains found the scene unsettling, especially seeing the #1 hero in such a state. Spinner remarked on the awkwardness, and 𝗟𝗏 agreed, while Kurohige suggested they leave. AFO, uncomfortable with the display, also wanted to exit. Before Endeavor could unleash his jet burn, 𝗟𝗏 countered with his own flames, preventing the attack from reaching them. Kurohige then teleported everyone away, leaving the heroes to grapple with All Might's emotional breakdown. Once he regained his composure, 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐻 insisted that All Might explain what had happened. All Might shared the details, including what had transpired with Izuku, shocking the pro-heroes. In a fit of anger, 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻 delivered a swift kick to All Might, causing him to revert to his original form, surprising everyone present. The now furious pro-heroes made their way to you, confronting Nizu, the staff, and both Class 1A and Class 1B. The confrontation was intense, with the pros expressing their outrage. Monoma, trying to be clever, suggested that Izuku was the traitor, believing it would deflect the pros' anger. However, the truth soon emerged. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻 urged All Might to clarify the situation, and All Might revealed that young Yagi was not the traitor. Katsuki was taken aback, unable to comprehend this revelation, as All Might's tone shifted to one of seriousness. The staff and students were stunned, especially since All Might had always addressed them with a sense of familiarity. All Might confirmed that AFO had stated Izuku was innocent, and he felt a deep sense of regret. Uraraka questioned the implications of this revelation, while Lita expressed horror at the realization that they had harmed their friend based on a falsehood. Denki struggled to accept the reality, and Izumi was in disbelief, calling out for her brother. The weight of their mistake began to sink in, and tears flowed as they mourned the loss of an innocent person. A friend, a crush, a sparring partner, due to a lie. Suddenly, a student rushed at Katsuki, delivering a punch that shocked everyone. The student, filled with anger, accused the others of killing his brother, insisting that he had warned them all along. Kendo attempted to calm him down, but the student was relentless, expressing frustration at their inability to think rationally and questioning whether they had ever truly cared for Izuku. Uraraka tried to defend herself, but the student interrupted, threatening to retaliate if anyone claimed to love Izuku. All Might intervened, urging the student to apologize, but the student retaliated, using his quirk to strike All Might, causing him to revert back to Toshinori. The room fell silent in disbelief. The student declared his disdain for his father, expressing that he felt betrayed by his own family. He stormed off, leaving Nizu and the others calling after him. Izumi, hurt by her brother's words, ran away in tears, prompting some classmates to comfort her. The student distanced himself from you, finding solace under a cherry tree where he and Izuku had once made a promise to become top heroes. Overwhelmed with emotion, he cried, longing for his brother, wherever he might be. Izuku stood resolute, vowing never to abandon his brother, Heaven. He promised vengeance against those who had betrayed him. After gathering his strength, he walked away, not yet ready to return to you. Meanwhile, at 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩𝐿, All Might revealed that Yuga Aoyama was the true traitor, shocking and angering the students. They rushed back to the dorms, only to find that Yuga had vanished, taking all his belongings. Nizu instructed the staff to search his home, but upon arrival, they discovered that neither Yuga nor his parents were there. The house was mostly empty, indicating he had left long ago. The news spread rapidly through you, and the atmosphere shifted. Class 1A and 1B were now viewed with suspicion, seen as potential villains. Mei took drastic measures, banning students from using her support items, warning that any misuse could lead to disastrous consequences. Izuku distanced himself from both classes, opting to undertake missions alone instead of collaborating with them. Inko received the heartbreaking news, struggling to believe her son could be involved in such treachery. She wept and prayed for his safe return. A month passed, and the heroes uncovered the source of the false evidence. It was a student from Izuku's old middle school. While the student faced consequences, they were not as severe as those imposed on the staff and the two classes. Izuku confronted the student, unleashing his pent-up anger in a fierce encounter, leaving the student severely injured but alive. 3 years had passed, and those who had betrayed Izuku began to realize the void his absence had created. As the present day unfolded, Izuku awoke to a cloudy sky, feeling the weight of another day ahead. He got ready, hoping to avoid interactions with his classmates. In the kitchen, he quickly prepared a sandwich and grabbed a bottle of fruit punch before leaving the dorms to begin his daily patrols. Once outside 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐸, Izuku leaped onto a building, scanning the streets for any signs of trouble. Throughout the day, he managed to thwart a few crimes, including stopping a robbery and apprehending the thieves. As afternoon approached, he found himself atop a building, reflecting on his productive day. Just as he was about to head back, a loud explosion echoed in the distance, accompanied by a thick plume of smoke. Curiosity piqued, he decided to investigate instead of returning to 𝐿. Izuku swiftly made his way toward the smoke, leaping from rooftop to rooftop until he reached the next city. As the smoke cleared, he was met with chaos, large monsters and smaller flying creatures wreaking havoc. He recognized the severity of the situation and prepared himself for battle. A nearby hero urged him to flee, but Izuku insisted he was a hero in training. The hero's warning was cut short when two flying monsters snatched him away, leaving Izuku stunned. As he braced himself for the approaching threat, Izuku transformed his fist into gold and struck one of the flying monsters. He was taken aback by their grotesque appearance and heard a monstrous roar from one of the larger creatures, which began demolishing buildings. Determined, Izuku charged at the giant monster, attempting to distract it with a high-pitched whistle. He unleashed a blast of molten gold, but it had little effect. The creature retaliated, sending Izuku sprawling, but he managed to regain his footing. Just then, 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿, Hawks, and Ryuku appeared in the air, instructing him to retreat. Izuku complied, watching as the heroes engaged the monster. However, their attacks seemed futile, and he grew increasingly concerned about their stamina. As the monster prepared to attack Hawks, a figure suddenly appeared, slicing off the creature's hand and saving him. The figure confronted the monster, swiftly dispatching it with remarkable agility. Izuku and the heroes watched in awe as the figure effortlessly defeated the formidable foe. As the dust settled, 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 stepped forward, demanding to know the figure's identity and intentions. "This is Japan, right?" Ryuku confirmed it was. The individual felt a sense of relief at being back. 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 inquired about their name, and the response revealed that the name was Izuku Midoriya. Hawks, Ryuku, and 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 referred to him as a kid. Izuku, feeling fatigued, yawned and expressed a need for rest before losing consciousness. Hawks reacted with concern, while 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 ordered immediate action to get him to a hospital. Ryuku swiftly lifted Izuku and flew to the nearest medical facility, with Izuku deciding to follow closely behind. Izuku's thoughts were filled with uncertainty. He needed to verify if this truly was his brother, Izuku. He hoped it was really him. As the scene shifted, 3 years later, Izuku Midoriya was now 18 years old. He had acquired numerous aliases, including the Ashen One and the Dragon Slayer. His interests had evolved, encompassing weapons, magic, and hunting, while his dislikes remained rooted in villains and the hero system. In a hospital room, Izuku lay unconscious but stable, with doctors conducting tests. They were perplexed and concerned due to his body exhibiting both extreme cold and warmth. Outside the room, Ryuku, Hawks, and 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 anxiously awaited updates, while Izuku remained determined to uncover the truth about his brother's identity. At that moment, the doctor emerged, and all eyes turned toward him, eager for news about Izuku's condition. It was a mystery. He appeared perfectly fine, yet there were so many things they had never encountered before. 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 inquired about the situation, and the doctor explained that although the patient seemed fine, he should not be alive. Hawks expressed his disbelief, while Izuku pondered the meaning of this information. Ryuku asked about the patient's condition, and the doctor informed them that he was currently asleep. 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 was surprised to learn that the patient had been asleep since arriving at the hospital. Hawks noted that he must have been very tired, to which the doctor agreed. Izuku wanted to see him, and the doctor allowed them to enter after gathering their equipment. As the doctors exited, Izuku and the 3 heroes entered the room, finding Izuku sleeping peacefully. Hawks remarked that he looked like he was having a good dream, suggesting they return later. 𝐿𝐴𝐷𝐿 noted that Izuku appeared fine, and Ryuku pointed out that he was in good hands, urging them to return to their patrols and for Izuku to head back to school. Izuku, however, felt compelled to ask one thing before leaving. Gently shaking Izuku, he was met with a sleepy grasp of his hand and the opening of one eye. Izuku smiled, glad to see his little brother. Izuku was overjoyed, confirming it was truly him. Izuku explained that the change in his hair color was due to stress. Izuku was curious about what had happened, but Izuku promised to explain later and suggested they move to another location. Ryuko cautioned Izuku to rest, noting he looked sleep-deprived, but Izuku assured them he would be fine. As Izuku rose from the hospital bed, a loud boom echoed through the building. Hawks questioned the source of the noise, and Izuku sniffed the air, recognizing the scent of an unwelcome presence. He summoned his katana, surprising Izuku, and dashed downstairs to the hospital lobby, with Izuku and the heroes following closely behind. Upon reaching the lobby, they encountered a large man swinging a giant blade and shouting angrily. Izuku whistled to catch the man's attention, along with his bandit companions, who were shocked to see him again. The man, Juzu, expressed disbelief at Izuku's survival, recalling their previous encounters. Izuku reminded him that he had survived multiple attempts on his life. Juzu, frustrated, commanded his bandits to attack. As they charged, Izuku met their advance head-on. He parried one attack, swiftly incapacitating the first bandit. Another attempted to stab him, but Izuku sidestepped and countered effectively. He threw a hatchet at a third bandit, and the last one was sent flying with a powerful. Izuku taunted Juzu, challenging him to a rematch. Juzu, fueled by his drink, unleashed a toxic cloud that overwhelmed his remaining henchmen. Izuku commented on Juzu's need for breath mints as the man prepared to attack. Dodging Juzu's powerful swing, which cracked the floor, Izuku struck back, injuring Juzu's knee. As he prepared to finish the fight, Juzu released another foul burp, creating a noxious cloud around him. Izuku was astonished by Juzu's resilience to such a stench. Juzu, undeterred, consumed more of his drink, which ignited into flames. He unleashed a fiery breath attack, forcing Izuku to evade. The chaos in the lobby shocked Izuku and the others as they witnessed the destruction. Juzu, in pain, surrounded himself with a toxic cloud, and Izuku expressed his disgust. As the battle escalated, Izuku unleashed a powerful attack, engulfing Juzu in flames. The resulting explosion silenced Juzu as he fell backward, disappearing, indicating his defeat. Izuku remarked on the end of Juzu's reign, while the others were left in disbelief, questioning what had just transpired. Izuku explained that Juzu was the leader of a gang of bandits, and he had eliminated them all. As Izuku began to process this, Izuku vanished in a cloud of smoke, leaving the heroes bewildered. Endeavor was frustrated by Izuku's disappearance, while Hawks wondered if he had become a ninja. Ryuko insisted they needed to find him quickly. Izuku, determined to follow his brother, argued that school was not a priority at that moment. As Izuku stormed off, he felt conflicted about being left behind. He couldn't understand why they wouldn't let him help. With a groan, he expressed his frustration, only to be startled by Izuku's sudden appearance beside him. In the alley, leaning against the wall with a small smirk on his face, Izuku greeted his brother. Izuku, surprised, quickly covered his mouth, trying to contain his excitement. Izuku, alive and well, stepped out of the shadows and embraced Izuku, who returned the hug. They remained in this moment for a while before pulling apart. Izuku, curious, asked what had happened to Izuku. Izuku replied that it was quite the story. Izuku, not eager to return to you, expressed that he had time to listen. With a chuckle, Izuku suggested they walk and talk, promising to keep it brief and straightforward. As the two brothers strolled toward you, Izuku recounted his experiences, sharing everything he had faced in the most concise way possible. Each revelation left Izuku more astonished than the last. After a few minutes of walking, they reached the front gate of 𝐒𝐮𝐬, and Izuku concluded his tale, leaving Izuku speechless. Izuku's hair had turned white, and he explained that his girlfriend thought it looked nice, even though she had preferred his green hair. Izuku interrupted, asking if he really had a girlfriend. Izuku revealed that he actually had a couple of them, surprising Izuku. He then mentioned that he seemed to be better with girls than he had realized. As they approached the gate, Nizu, Aizawa, and All Might stood waiting for them. Izuku, feeling overwhelmed, asked them to leave him alone. All Might insisted that Izuku needed to answer some questions. Izuku, with a calm yet emotionless expression, told them it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Aizawa called him a problem child, while Nizu addressed him as Mr. Yagi. Izuku corrected them, stating that he was now Izuku Midoriya, having been disowned by his mother and labeled a disappointment by his father. All Might, visibly shaken, called out to Izuku, who simply asked to come in as he was tired. Izuku confirmed that his room was still intact, though it had been trashed by their classmates after he had fallen through a portal. Izuku expressed disappointment at the state of his room. Upon entering the dorm, Class 1A was busy with their activities until they noticed Izuku and Izuku. Lita shouted for Izuku, demanding to know where he had been and who Izuku was. Izuku yawned and promised to explain after a long nap. As he walked upstairs, he noticed graffiti on his dorm door, filled with insults. He sighed, thinking he could clean it up easily. Katsuki shouted at him, questioning who he was. Izuku sighed again, revealing his identity. Katsuki was incredulous, while Izuku urged him to be quiet, reminding everyone that Izuku knew Lita. Izumi, shocked, realized that no one else called her 𝐼𝐻𝐬, except for Izuku. Tears filled her eyes as she processed the realization. Mina noticed Izumi's distress and asked what was wrong. Izumi, sniffling, confirmed that it was really Izuku. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 was confused, while Izuku explained that no one called Izumi by that name except for Izuku. Uraraka then realized the truth and rushed up the stairs to knock on Izuku's door, pleading for him to come out. Izuku reminded her that Izuku was sleeping, but Uraraka kicked the door open, surprising everyone. She was taken aback to find Izuku in bed with someone. Izuku opened one eye, asking what she wanted. Uraraka stammered, demanding to know who the girl was. Izuku introduced 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬, his girlfriend, who greeted Uraraka. Uraraka was shocked by the revelation, and Izuku attempted to return to sleep. However, Uraraka charged at him, prompting Izuku to react defensively, stopping her in her tracks. He warned her about disrespecting 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬, who sweetly acknowledged his protective nature. Uraraka, feeling betrayed, argued that Izuku was her boyfriend, but he reminded her that they had never dated. Tensions escalated, and Izuku's hands began to glow with heat as he warned Uraraka to leave. She fled in tears, and Izuku secured his door with an enchantment before returning to bed with 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬, feeling content. He expressed how much he missed her, and she encouraged him to rest. Meanwhile, Mina was outside, demanding Izuku open the door when she accidentally grabbed the doorknob, causing her hand to ignite. Shoto quickly intervened to help her, while the others were in shock over what had just happened. Izuku began to explain everything that had transpired with Izuku, leaving everyone stunned by the revelations. How is he alive? Izuku embodied grit, determination, and an unwavering spirit that defied the odds. Denki found it impressive. Izuku confirmed it was indeed true. Izumi reflected on how much he had endured all on his own. Katsuki remained skeptical, insisting he wouldn't believe it until he saw it for himself. He charged toward Izuku's door, kicking it with urgency, demanding that Izuku wake up. Just then, a flaming fist struck Katsuki in the face, sending him crashing against the dorm wall, singeing his skin slightly. The rest of Class 1A reacted in shock, calling out Katsuki's name. Izuku found the situation amusing. As the new day dawned, Izuku was still asleep, with 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬 nestled beside him. Upon waking, he stretched and remarked on how well he had rested. 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬 inquired if he felt refreshed, to which he gratefully replied. She expressed her devotion to him, and they shared a tender kiss before the moment was interrupted by loud banging at the door. Monoma shouted accusations, while Toguro and Setsuna joined in, demanding Izuku come out. Izuku sighed, realizing this was how his day would begin. 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬 suggested he do something to scare them off, and he agreed, summoning a death wand. With a flourish, he conjured a scene that sent Class 1B into a panic as they were momentarily pulled into an abyss by skeletal hands. After releasing them, Izuku felt satisfied. 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬 asked what his plans were for the day. Izuku mentioned he had many foes to confront but would start with smaller challenges, just as he had when he first arrived in the realm of the Soulsborne. He wished him luck and reassured him she would be waiting for his return. Izuku, though hesitant about leaving her alone, acknowledged her ability to defend herself. With a smile, he headed for the door, ready to embark on his quest. As he descended the stairs and approached the main door, he was confronted by Class 1. Toru began to question him about FAA when an arrow suddenly flew by, narrowly missing him and embedding itself in the wall. Izuku stood ready with a bow, warning them not to speak ill of FIA. Katsuki, surprised, made a snide remark about Izuku having a girlfriend, prompting Izuku to counter with a question about Katsuki's own romantic life, which left Katsuki speechless. Izuku then stated he had important matters to attend to, and Izumi asked what had happened to him. Izuku thought he had already explained everything to them, but Denki confirmed he had. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 asked if Izuku was truly immortal. In response, Izuku summoned a katana, raised it high, and dramatically stabbed himself in the chest. The class gasped in horror as he fell to the ground. Uraraka screamed, while Kirishima and Katsuki reacted with disbelief. Lita prepared to fetch help but was startled when Izuku flipped back to his feet, pulling the katana from his chest to reveal the wound. He assured them he could die but would simply return to life. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 was astonished as Izuku took a swig from a healing flask, watching his wound heal instantly. He then walked toward the door, ready to leave. Izumi called out to him, expressing concern, but Izuku assured her he would return eventually. Izumi felt disheartened as Izuku placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, shaking his head gently. Meanwhile, Katsuki seethed with jealousy, thinking about how he viewed Izuku as beneath him. Denki and Mineta, curious, discussed whether there was really a girl in Izuku's room. Jiro, annoyed, encouraged Mineta to go check it out. Mineta climbed the stairs, reaching for the doorknob, but the door suddenly transformed, revealing a set of teeth and eyes. It lunged at him, wrapping its tongue around Mineta and pulling him inside. Momo screamed, while Kirishima expressed shock at the bizarre sight. The door mimic chewed briefly before spitting Mineta out, leaving him battered and covered in saliva. Ojiro suggested they avoid Izuku's room in the future, and the boys agreed. Lita proposed they head to class, and the group decided to follow his lead. Meanwhile, Izuku stood outside the school gates, preparing to venture into the city. He thought about the new challenges that awaited him. As he searched for anything unusual, an explosion suddenly erupted nearby, capturing his attention. He swiftly climbed a building and began leaping from rooftop to rooftop until he arrived at the scene. There, he saw several heroes surrounded by flames, facing off against 3 massive skeletons. Izuku sighed, recognizing the skeleton lords. He summoned a hammer and leaped off the rooftop, aiming for the staff lord, who managed to block the attack but was still knocked to the ground. The scythe lord turned its attention to Izuku as he regained his footing. Izuku greeted the 3 skeletons, recalling their previous encounters. The staff lord raised its bone staff, summoning skeletons from the ground, prompting Izuku to groan in frustration. He dodged a skeleton's sword swing, swinging his hammer to obliterate it. Another skeleton charged at him, but Izuku swiftly dispatched it as well. He prepared to continue the fight, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Archer spun around, hurling his hammer at the skeleton archer, obliterating it in an instant. A skeleton rogue attempted a sneak attack from behind Izuku, but he deftly dodged and executed a spinning kick that sent the rogue's head flying. The rogue's body continued to move, trying to stab Izuku, who rolled to the side, grabbed his hammer, and swung it with precision, shattering the skeleton rogue. As Izuku surveyed the battlefield, he felt a sharp slice across his abdomen from the Scythe Lord, causing him to stagger back. A skeleton lunged at him, but Izuku retaliated by punching its head off. He then seized the skeleton's arm and hurled its body at the Scythe Lord, who sliced through it, only to be met with a hammer flying toward his face. Izuku charged at the Staff Lord, who quickly summoned a skeleton beast that lunged at him. Izuku slid beneath the beast, avoiding its attack, and reached the Staff Lord, delivering a powerful punch to his face before executing a drop kick that sent the Staff Lord crashing to the ground. As he turned, the skeleton beast lunged at him again, prompting Izuku to perform a front flip over it and reach for his hammer. Suddenly, the halberd lord charged in, moving his halberd at Izuku. Izuku stomped on the blade, embedding it into the ground, and grabbed the back of the halberd lord's head, forcing it against the blunt end of the halberd, cracking the lord's skull. With his hammer in hand, Izuku faced the skeleton beast once more, swinging his weapon and breaking its skull, causing the creature's body to disintegrate. He then approached the bone beast, delivering a decisive blow that obliterated its skull. The staff lord attempted to summon another creature, but Izuku swiftly closed the distance and delivered an uppercut with his hammer, sending the staff lord soaring into the air. As both the halberd and scythe lords rushed toward him, Izuku spun around, striking them both and cracking their rib cages, sending them flying into the flames, where they vanished. The staff lord hit the ground and fell apart upon impact before disappearing entirely. As the fire around the area began to subside, Izuku extended his palm, releasing an icy mist to extinguish the remaining flames. He assessed the situation, satisfied with his work. After healing his abdominal wound, he attempted to walk away but found himself immediately surrounded by fellow heroes. One hero expressed concern, stating they had the situation under control. Another chimed in, warning him that he could have been hurt. They questioned his presence, wondering why he wasn't in school. Izuku shrugged off their concerns, explaining he had people to meet and tasks to complete. Suddenly, a voice interrupted, declaring that he wasn't going anywhere. One of the heroes jumped up, aiming a spinning downward kick at Izuku's head. He dodged the attack and turned to face the figure, recognizing 𝗟𝗏𝐽. He pleaded with her not to engage. How does anyone not know his name? Izuku thought to himself, realizing he didn't have time to engage with the kid. Suddenly, 𝗟𝗏𝐽 dashed toward him at an incredible speed, but Izuku effortlessly zipped past her, leaping over heroes who were fleeing in panic. A random hero shouted that he was getting away, and 𝐷𝗓𝐼𝐼𝐼 urged the others to pursue him. The heroes began to chase Izuku as he sprinted down the street, hopping onto the roofs of parked cars. He then leaped, running along a wall before grabbing a flagpole and spinning around, launching himself onto a building's rooftop. Dusting himself off, he stretched and thought about the Bone Lord trio, knowing their leader must be nearby. He pondered how to find him. As Izuku sat cross-legged, deep in thought, he narrowly dodged a red feather that whizzed past him. Turning around, he spotted 𝗏𝗏𝐽. Izuku acknowledged him, noting that he was a cool guy but requested to be left alone. 𝗏𝗏𝐽, however, insisted he had to bring Izuku in, mentioning a previous incident where Izuku had taken a life. Izuku remained firm in his stance, expressing no regret for what he had done. 𝗏𝗏𝐽, determined, pulled out 2 feathers and charged at him. Izuku performed a front flip over 𝗏𝗏𝐽, dismissing his hammer. He warned 𝗏𝗏𝐽 that he didn't want to hurt him but would if necessary. 𝗏𝗏𝐽, caught off guard, barely dodged 4 fire arrows, but the 5th struck his left wing, causing him to wince in pain. Forced to land, 𝗏𝗏𝐽 reported on his walkie-talkie that Izuku was on the run and had injured him. Kamui Woods, observing the situation, sent tree branches toward Izuku. Anticipating the attack, Izuku aimed his palm, freezing Kamui's hands and part of his body in the process. Kamui, shivering, asked to be released, but Izuku informed him that it was a sunny day and he would eventually thaw out. A random hero shouted that they had spotted Izuku again. He dashed up another building and onto a rooftop, but was confronted by 𝗟𝗏𝐿 and 𝗟𝗏𝐽. 𝗟𝗏𝐿 declared that the game of cat and mouse was over, while 𝗟𝗏𝐽 reminded Izuku of the life he had taken. Izuku defended his actions, stating that the man had deserved it. Before 𝗟𝗏𝐿 could finish his sentence, the sky darkened ominously, casting a shadow over the area and alarming the crowd. Izuku recognized the presence approaching and summoned a lantern to illuminate the darkness. He announced that the Grave Lord Nito had arrived. As the ground trembled, a massive bone hand erupted from below, pulling itself up to reveal Nito. Izuku aimed the lantern at the pile of bones, acknowledging Nito's emergence. Without a word, Nito unleashed a terrifying scream, raising the dead around him as skeletons. Izuku sighed, preparing for the inevitable battle. Taking a deep breath, he unleashed a dragon spell, releasing a torrent of flames that engulfed the skeletons, causing damage to Nito as well. Nito vanished into the shadows, prompting Izuku to strategize. He realized he needed to illuminate the area further to prevent 𝐼𝐻𝐼's stealthy attacks. 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐻, confused and demanding to know what was happening, was abruptly pushed aside by Izuku as he charged forward to block 𝐼𝐻𝐼's strike. Though he managed to defend against the attack, the force pushed him back. Izuku retaliated by jumping and unleashing flames beneath him, forcing 𝐼𝐻𝐼 to retreat into the shadows once more. Izuku contemplated the situation, knowing that the civilians around would only complicate matters if 𝐼𝐻𝐼 turned them into skeletons. Just then, 𝐼𝐻𝐼 reappeared above him, aiming to slice him in half. Izuku rolled out of the way, summoning his hammer and striking one of 𝐼𝐻𝐼's skulls, causing him to recoil in pain. Izuku sensed 𝐼𝐻𝐼 was about to scream and quickly distanced himself. Fortunately, no one was nearby to be harmed by the scream, but 𝐼𝐻𝐼 shook off bones from his body, creating more skeletons. Spotting Izuku, 𝐼𝐻𝐼 was met with a swirling cloud of flames that struck him, though it didn't burn him enough to keep him down. With the battle intensifying, Izuku found himself facing 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐻, who was ablaze with fury. An idea sparked in Izuku's mind as he charged at 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐻 and executed a swift kick, aiming for a vulnerable spot. 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐻 erupted in a massive fiery explosion, sending Izuku flying and leaving him with severe burns. The blast illuminated the area, revealing 𝐼𝐻𝐼's position. 𝐼𝐻𝐼 rushed toward the weakened Izuku, preparing to strike, but Izuku managed to regain his footing just in time to block the attack. He then aimed his palm at 𝐼𝐻𝐼, unleashing a torrent of flames that engulfed him. 𝐼𝐻𝐼 writhed in agony, on the verge of a scream, when Izuku leaped forward and struck him squarely on the head, causing a significant impact that shattered 𝐼𝐻𝐼's skull. The force of the blow caused 𝐼𝐻𝐼 and the nearby skeletons to collapse, signaling the end of Grave Lord 𝐼𝐻𝐼. Izuku, still catching his breath, knelt down, feeling the pain from his injuries. He retrieved his healing flask and took a sip, feeling the warmth of healing wash over him as his burns began to fade. With renewed strength, he made his way back to 𝐻𝐼, grateful as the darkness receded and light returned to the world. He lifted his healing flask toward the sun, celebrating the moment, and then took a swig from another flask filled with root beer before stowing it away. Izuku managed to sneak back to 𝐻𝐼 without being noticed by any heroes. He approached the front gate and slipped in, making his way to the 1A dorm. As he climbed toward his window, he spotted 𝐿𝐼𝐴 engaged in conversation with someone he recognized. When he opened the window, he caught their attention. Upon his return, 𝐿𝐼𝐴 inquired about the woman with him. Izuku introduced the firekeeper, who affectionately referred to him as the Ashen One. Before he could elaborate further, the firekeeper embraced him warmly and kissed his forehead, expressing her joy at finding him. 𝐿𝐼𝐴, surprised, remarked that Izuku hadn't mentioned having another maiden. Izuku apologized for the oversight, while the firekeeper playfully asked if he had any more maidens hidden from them. Izuku was open about his situation, admitting to having multiple admirers. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 and firekeeper expressed their disappointment that he hadn't mentioned it sooner. Understanding their feelings, Izuku sighed, acknowledging their concerns. Suddenly, both girls playfully pushed him onto his bed and snuggled up to him. Izuku felt relieved that they weren't truly angry with him. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 admitted she was upset but didn't want him to leave, while firekeeper insisted he stay close to her. Izuku embraced both girls, deciding to take a nap after everything that had transpired. He reassured them that no one had entered the room. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 mentioned that some had tried but failed. As Izuku closed his eyes, firekeeper asked him a question that caught him off guard. She wanted to know the meaning of a derogatory term she had been called by another girl. After a moment of silence, Izuku sighed and got out of bed, summoning a wooden club as he prepared to confront the situation. He stepped out of his room and noticed his classmates in the living room, but his attention was drawn to Uraraka in the kitchen. He greeted her casually, but before she could respond, he accidentally struck her with the wooden club, shocking everyone around them. Izuku glared at Uraraka, warning her to leave his girlfriends alone before retreating back to his room, leaving his classmates unsettled. The girls rushed to comfort Uraraka, who was confused and hurt. They reassured her that Izuku would come around, but she remained uncertain. The next morning, Izuku was in the dorm kitchen preparing breakfast, with 𝐼𝐴 and Firekeeper watching him closely. 𝐼𝐴 complimented the aroma of the food, while Firekeeper expressed confusion about the cooking method. Just as Izuku was about to explain, his brother Izuku entered, yawning and curious about the early breakfast. They exchanged casual banter, and Izuku asked if Izuku was upset with their classmates. Izuku admitted he didn't enjoy being around them but hadn't felt the need to confront them aggressively. As more classmates began to wake up and join them in the kitchen, Lita shouted at Izuku for missing class. Izuku responded calmly, explaining he had other priorities. Momo pointed out his absence from class, and Izuku reiterated that he had more important matters to attend to. Katsuki challenged him, implying he thought he was superior, while 𝐼𝐴 and Firekeeper defended Izuku's status. Mina attempted to demand something from Izuku, but he interrupted her, asserting he wouldn't be dictated to. Tsuyu tried to reason with him, but Izuku clarified that he and Uraraka had never been in a relationship, even before the recent issues arose. 𝐼𝐴 and Firekeeper were curious about what had happened, and Izuku shared his past experiences, which shocked them and fueled their anger toward Class 1A. 𝐼𝐴 and Firekeeper confronted the classmates, accusing them of betrayal. Ochako retaliated, questioning their loyalty, but Firekeeper defended her actions, claiming she had been there for Izuku when it mattered. Denki tried to apologize, but Izuku dismissed it, stating that apologies wouldn't erase the pain caused. Izumi then used her telekinesis to restrain Izuku, surprising 𝐼𝐴 and Firekeeper. She insisted he accompany them to class, while Izuku warned her to let him go, emphasizing his need to handle his own affairs. Lita accused him of avoiding them, but Izuku remained firm in his stance, asserting he had important matters to address. Something suddenly crashed through the window and landed inside the dorm, causing the class to look over in shock and fear at the sight of a scourge beast. Siro expressed his confusion, while Izuku recognized the creature. Izumi urged Izuku to let her go, but the scourge beast lunged toward the class. Izuku managed to break free from Izumi's telekinesis, which had faltered due to her fear, and seized the scourge beast by its lower jaw, flinging it down the stairs. Summoning a flintlock pistol, Izuku charged at the beast, which had regained its footing. He aimed the pistol at its head and fired, ending the scourge beast's threat. Izuku then informed 𝐼𝐴 and the Firekeeper to head to his room immediately. As they rushed away, Izuku reloaded his pistol and summoned his saw spear. He instructed the rest of the class to stay inside but warned that they could join him if they wished, emphasizing that he wouldn't be able to protect them constantly. Stepping outside, Izuku noticed several more scourge beasts roaming the school grounds. He positioned his pistol at his hip and let out a whistle, drawing the attention of the beasts, which roared and charged at him. Izuku sprinted forward, leaping into the air and throwing his saw spear, which struck one of the scourge beasts in the back. Landing gracefully, he retrieved his spear and stabbed another beast that lunged at him. He tossed the defeated creature aside, spotting 3 more scourge beasts approaching. As one beast swung its claws, Izuku blocked the attack and drew his pistol, shooting a lurking scourge beast that had attempted a sneak attack. He dodged another beast's claws but felt a sharp bite on his shoulder from a second beast, while the other 2 rushed in as well. Izumi called out to her brother, and Izuku intervened, using his quirk to encase his fist in gold and punch one of the beasts, gaining its attention. As it released Izuku, he flipped sideways, landing on his feet and swiftly slashing through all 3 beasts. Izuku expressed concern over Izuku's injury, noticing his left arm was missing. Izuku calmly acknowledged the loss, realizing it had been torn off during his maneuver. Izuku was astonished at his brother's composure, but Izuku quickly drew his pistol again, shooting another incoming scourge beast. They surveyed the area, noting the scattered remains of the creatures. Izuku questioned the origin of the beasts, and Izuku promised to handle the situation. Izuku handed Izuku his saw spear and summoned a beast cutter. Izuku was amazed by the weapon's appearance. Before he could ask more, 5 scourge beasts leaped at them. Izuku swung the beast cutter, extending it like a 𝗟𝗶 and effortlessly slicing through the beasts, leaving Izuku in awe. Izuku instructed his brother to ensure the class remained safe inside. Just then, Katsuki launched an attack, sending one scourge beast flying. However, for more charged at him. Izuku sighed and dashed toward Katsuki, grabbing him by the collar and tossing him into the air. As Izuku leaped after him, he dodged the incoming beasts and caught Katsuki's collar, reminding him to stay inside. He then hurled Katsuki toward the dorm, where he crashed through the roof. Izuku swung his beast cutter, cleaving through 3 of the remaining scourge beasts. The last beast roared and charged at him, but Izuku swiftly countered, slicing it in half. As the other scourge beasts fled, Izuku noticed a new threat, a scourge werewolf standing on the school roof. The creature leaped down, blitzing toward Izuku and slashing at him, exposing his wounds. Despite the surprise, Izuku stood firm, drawing his pistol and firing, but the werewolf dodged the shot. Izuku grabbed his beast cutter and parried another attack, stabbing the werewolf in the chest. The creature recoiled, but Izuku quickly extended his weapon, wrapping it around the werewolf's leg and pulling, severing part of it. The beast fell, and Izuku charged, swinging his cutter down to stab the werewolf, but it rolled away and lunged at him. In a swift motion, Izuku caught it by the throat and snapped its neck, dropping the defeated creature to the ground. With the threat neutralized, the remaining scourge beasts fled the area, escaping into the city or forest. Izuku acknowledged his injuries, coughing up blood as he knelt, but he reassured himself that he would recover. Taking a swig from his healing flask, he began to regenerate his wounds. As students emerged from their hiding spots, they were met with the sight of defeated scourge beasts scattered around the school grounds. Izuku located his severed arm and reattached it, watching as it healed. Kendo and Class 1B approached him, charging forward. Izuku responded in kind, performing a front flip over them and heading toward the werewolf's corpse as they turned to follow him. The dead scourge werewolf lay motionless as Monoma shouted accusations at Izuku, calling him a traitor. 𝗟𝗓𝐻 expressed his anger, demanding to know what Izuku was doing there, while Rin warned him that he should have stayed hidden. Ignoring the chaos around him, Izuku focused on the scourge werewolf, taking a moment to sniff the air. He decided to take action, opening his mouth and biting into the creature's arm, much to the shock and disgust of Class 1B. As he swallowed the flesh, he realized it was edible. With determination, he plunged his fist into the werewolf's chest, pulling out its heart and beginning to consume it, leaving Class 1B horrified. Toguru felt nauseous, while Pony expressed her disgust. Nirenjiki questioned Izuku's sanity, and Monoma, filled with rage, activated 𝗧𝗧𝗧's quirk and charged at him. However, Izuku swiftly moved in front of Monoma, causing him to stumble backward in fear. As Izuku examined his hands, he noticed his fingernails had grown longer and sharper. He crouched down, looking Monoma in the eyes, and dragged one of his claws across Monoma's cheek, easily cutting into his flesh. 𝗧𝗧𝗧, enraged, transformed fully into iron and charged at Izuku. As Izuku stood ready, he waited for 𝗧𝗧𝗧 to get closer. When 𝗧𝗧𝗧 swung his fist, Izuku darted forward, slashing across 𝗧𝗧𝗧's chest, inflicting pain but also breaking his own claws in the process. 𝗧𝗧𝗧 let out a cry of pain, and Izuku noted that iron was not ideal for his claws. To his surprise, he watched as his broken nails quickly regenerated. 𝗟𝗓𝐻, furious, transformed into a beast and roared at Izuku, who instinctively tackled him to the ground, scratching and beating him. The other students were terrified as Izuku growled, and Pony pleaded for someone to intervene. Rin and Kozai attempted to help 𝗟𝗓𝐻, but Izuku snapped at them, causing them to fall back in fear. Despite 𝗟𝗓𝐻's bloodied face, he was still alive. Izuku raised his claws, preparing to strike, when a familiar voice interrupted him. A figure approached, and even in his beastly state, Izuku recognized her. He smirked and charged at her, but she drew her blade and blocked his attack, pushing him back. She encouraged him to overcome the beast within, and Izuku struggled against the urge, finding it more difficult than usual after consuming the werewolf's heart. He rushed at her, swinging his claws, but she expertly blocked his strikes until she parried him and stabbed him in the gut, lifting him off the ground. As he snapped back to reality, he recognized her. Maria removed her blade from his wound as he landed on the ground. He quickly took a swig from his healing flask, mending his injury. Midoriya embraced him, expressing how much she had missed him. Izuku reciprocated her feelings, and as they shared a moment, Ochako watched in disbelief, struggling to process the situation. Izuku and Midoriya shared a kiss, which left the onlookers stunned. Midoriya playfully mentioned how she had missed their NTMT moments, and Izuku blushed at her words. Setsuna, feeling threatened, demanded to know who Midoriya was. Both Izuku and Midoriya aimed their weapons at her, causing her to flinch and narrowly escape their shots. Izuku warned her to watch her words, and Midoriya questioned Setsuna's presence, leading to a tense exchange. As the confrontation continued, Midoriya's fierce demeanor intimidated the classmates. Izuku explained his past to Midoriya, who became angry at Class 1A and Class 1B, glaring at them with intensity. She threatened to take action against them, while some students doubted her abilities. Izuku defended her, recalling her prowess in battle. He then introduced Midoriya to his brother and companions, but Kendo interrupted, only to be silenced by the sight of Izuku and Midoriya's weapons. They ordered Class 1B to move aside, and as they left with 𝗟𝗓𝗓, Izuku led Midoriya to the dorm where his classmates remained silent. He introduced her to Izuku and Izumi, but Midoriya's dismissive attitude towards Izumi created tension. Ochako confronted Izuku about Midoriya, but Midoriya stepped in, asserting her place in Izuku's life. She confidently declared her connection to him, leaving Ochako in shock and causing her to flee in tears, pursued by Momo and Tsuyu. The remaining classmates glared at Midoriya, who met their stares with her own, unflinching. As Izuku and Midoriya moved on to meet his other companions, the atmosphere was charged with unresolved emotions and tension, leaving Class 1B to ponder the implications of their encounter. To Ochako, Jiro thought that the comment was unnecessary, but 𝗟𝗓𝗓 definitely needed to hear it. Mina and Toru were surprised by the conversation. Jiro explained that everyone needed to understand that Izuku didn't have feelings for 𝗟𝗓𝗓 back in the day, but he had changed significantly since then. She needed to hear the truth, even if it hurt, otherwise, she might have become delusional and made poor choices in the future. Izuku agreed with Jiro, but Mina insisted that Izuku and 𝗟𝗓𝗓 had to end up together. Izuku challenged her, asking if she was willing to fight Midoriya and Izuku for her shipping preferences. Mina declared she would do whatever it took to bring a happy couple together, and Toru affirmed her support for her best friend. Izuku and Jiro exchanged glances, thinking that the two had already lost their sense of reality. The next day began early, with Izuku and Midoriya out in the city, searching for any beasts lurking in the shadows. Midoriya expressed her belief that the creatures from her world had somehow followed Izuku back. He confirmed his concerns about how that would impact his world, noting that while they had enough manpower, magic was a different matter entirely. Midoriya understood and continued to search alongside him. As they explored, they spotted a scourge beast prowling for a meal. Midoriya readied her pistol to shoot, but Izuku stopped her, reminding her that it would startle the civilians. He suggested a quieter approach and summoned his rifle spear. With a swift motion, he aimed and threw the spear, which struck the scourge beast, causing it to roar before collapsing. Midoriya was impressed by his skill. They climbed down from the roof, and Izuku retrieved his spear from the beast, preparing to leave when they heard a voice. Aizawa emerged from an alleyway, commenting on their early morning escapade. Izuku acknowledged him, and Aizawa expressed his expectation to see them in class. As Aizawa walked away, Izuku felt a wave of annoyance wash over him, realizing he didn't have time to deal with Aizawa or his students. Midoriya questioned whether he would actually follow Aizawa's orders, and Izuku explained that it was better than dealing with Aizawa's persistent nagging. He expressed confidence in Midoriya's ability to handle the situation alone. Midoriya felt it would be lonely without him but assured him she could track down the remaining scourge beasts. Izuku thanked her, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek before heading to catch some rest. Meanwhile, Midoriya set off to hunt the remaining beasts on her own. Upon returning to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 grounds, Izuku made his way to the Class 1A dorm, thinking he deserved some sleep. As he walked, he was approached by someone he recognized, who greeted him with a smile. It had been a long time since they had seen each other. Izuku acknowledged Hitoshi Shinso, who remarked on the unexpected encounter outside of a prison cell. Izuku shrugged, explaining that things had happened. 𝗀𝐿 mentioned that many people believed Izuku didn't belong there, to which Izuku asked if he was one of them. 𝗀𝐿 clarified that he was far from it and was actually there to apologize. 𝗀𝐿 reflected on the harsh words he had heard about his former friend being labeled a traitor. He had foolishly believed the rumors and felt a sense of satisfaction when he learned that Izuku would face consequences for his actions. The chaos that had unfolded at 𝐒𝐮𝐬 had been overwhelming, with the League of Villains launching relentless attacks, targeting families, and even kidnapping students. When Izuku vanished through a mysterious portal, it seemed to confirm his betrayal. However, as the truth emerged, 𝗀𝐿 found himself filled with regret for doubting Izuku. With tears welling in his eyes, 𝗀𝐿 was caught off guard when Izuku approached him and playfully flicked his forehead. The unexpected gesture made 𝗀𝐿 wince. Izuku reassured him, expressing that he had never held any anger towards him. Unlike those he once considered friends, 𝗀𝐿 had never sought to harm him, either physically or mentally. It was all in the past now, and Izuku considered 𝗀𝐿 a friend. Grateful, 𝗀𝐿 thanked him, still surprised by Izuku's kindness. Izuku encouraged him to get some rest, stating he was heading to bed himself. As they parted ways, Izuku made his way to the 1A dormitory. He climbed the wall and slipped into his room, where he found Firekeeper and FIA still asleep. He quietly settled back into bed, closing his eyes and drifting off to sleep. As the sun rose over 𝐼𝐻𝐻, Japan, Izuku continued to sleep peacefully until he was jolted awake by a loud banging on his door. Katsuki's voice rang out, demanding he come out. Izuku sighed, recognizing that Katsuki had not changed at all. The persistent knocking continued, and Izuku finally got up, approaching the door. He activated a spell, and a golden fist emerged, sending Katsuki crashing into the wall, where he slid down, unconscious. Izuku opened the door to find his classmates staring in shock. He greeted them with a cheerful morning before heading downstairs to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. As he cooked bacon and ham, Denki commented on the delicious smell, while 𝗍𝐿 asked what else they would be having. Izuku, slightly surprised, responded, wondering if they were all going to eat together. Last time Izuku checked, there was no we in him. Kirishima expressed his surprise, asking if Izuku was really not going to cook for everyone. Izuku replied that they could quickly make something for themselves. Ochako chimed in, suggesting that Izuku would cook for the other girls in his life, but before she could finish, Izuku tossed the coffee pot at her, hitting her on the forehead and causing her to fall to the floor. He warned her to watch her mouth. Mina then urged Izuku to be nice to his wife, to which Izuku questioned when that had happened. Toru added that they were destined to be together, but Izuku insisted that life wasn't a fairy tale and relationships couldn't be magically created. Mina challenged him, pointing out his connection with the girl he kept in his room. Izuku clarified that what he had with her was genuine love. Toru remarked on the fact that he kept her locked away all day, but Izuku reassured them that she could leave whenever she wanted. They chose to stay. Mina suggested they ask the girls directly, but Izuku was confident they would say the same thing he did. Momo intervened, asking them to stop the rambling, while Jiro requested quiet. The two girls sighed and settled down as Izuku finished cooking breakfast, then walked out of the kitchen to eat on the staircase, where Izumi joined him. Izumi greeted him with a cheerful, "Good morning," and Izuku responded with a simple acknowledgement. She asked how he had been, prompting him to elaborate on how he felt being back home. He expressed his gladness, appreciating the sunlight every day. 𝗍𝐿 wondered why he said that, questioning if there had been no sun where he had been. Izuku explained that sometimes it was dark, but when the sun was out, it was appealing. In a flashback, Izuku was seen climbing a cliff, struggling to reach solid ground after a fierce battle. He thought about how he had defeated the gargoyles and vowed not to be dragged down with them. After an hour of climbing, he finally reached the top, lying on the ground and gazing at the sky, tears in his eyes as he admired the sun. A knight appeared, praising the sun and encouraging Izuku to stand tall. The knight offered him a healing potion, which Izuku drank, feeling his wounds heal. He thanked the knight, who smiled brightly, and they prepared to face the challenges ahead together. Back in the present, Izuku hoped the knight was okay. Sato asked who he was talking about, but Izuku brushed it off. Lita called for everyone to get ready for class, and Izuku sighed, not wanting to be there but also not wanting Aizawa to be on his case constantly. As the class entered the main building, Izuku overheard whispers from other students, but he paid them no mind. They speculated about him being the traitor and wondered why his hair had changed from green to white. Izuku felt surrounded by clowns and idiots, but Izuku reassured him that he had his back. Izuku thanked him but insisted he could handle himself. Izuku insisted he would be there if needed, and Izuku promised to let him know if that time came. Izumi watched the two get along, feeling a bit left out. Tsuyu comforted Izumi, assuring her that Izuku would come around eventually. The class finally settled into their seats, and Izuku noticed the damage and graffiti on his desk. He remarked that it seemed his classmates had had fun while he was away. Mineta quickly denied it, and Shoji explained that it was the work of students from another class. Izuku looked to Izuku, who confirmed the truth, and he took his seat as Aizawa entered. Aizawa announced that the day would be special, as they would be doing battle training with a twist. Uraraka asked about the twist, and Aizawa revealed it would be the whole class against Izuku. The class reacted in shock, and Izuku questioned Aizawa's intentions. Aizawa challenged him, implying he thought Izuku could beat them all. Katsuki taunted Izuku, calling him a weakling, but Izuku clarified that he knew he could defeat the entire class. Denki warned him not to get cocky, while Ojiro agreed that they were strong too. Izuku acknowledged their strength but insisted that if Aizawa was set on this challenge, they wouldn't win. Shoto asked if he wanted to bet, and Izumi proposed that if they won, Izuku would have to forgive them and break up with the girls to date her instead. Mineta added that he wanted to keep the girls for himself. Izuku accepted the challenge and stood up, heading for the training grounds without another word, causing concern for Izuku and Jiro. Aizawa noted that Izuku seemed to think highly of himself and suggested they bring him down a peg. The class left the classroom, worried about facing Izuku. Momo reflected on how they outnumbered him but acknowledged that he had faced challenges beyond their comprehension. As they walked to the training area, they found Izuku wrapping his arms in dry leaves to prepare for the battle. Katsuki taunted him again, but Izuku remained silent. Mina urged him to say something, while Izuku expressed his concern. Izumi encouraged Izuku to stop stalling, and Ochako insisted he couldn't beat all of them. Mineta made a comment about losing his girlfriends, but Izuku interrupted, declaring he would send them all to the hospital. In an instant, he struck Mineta, sending him crashing through the wall. Izuku rushed out of the school building, surprising his classmates. Before anyone could react, he dashed forward and struck Shoto across the face, causing him to spin and crash into Ojiro, knocking them both down. Izuku then delivered a punch to Sato's midsection, making him cough and fall to his knees, eventually losing consciousness. Spotting Tokoyami preparing to act, Izuku quickly moved behind him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Tokoyami was startled, and Izuku warned him not to indulge in his darkness, suggesting that Dark Shadow should sit this one out. Dark Shadow complied without hesitation. Tokoyami attempted to respond, but Izuku swiftly interrupted him with a precise strike that rendered him unconscious. Seizing a piece of tape from Siro, Izuku swung him around, sending Siro crashing into Aoyama, taking them both down. Lita charged at Izuku, attempting a spinning kick, but Izuku ducked and countered with an uppercut that sent Lita spiraling through the air, landing on his back, unconscious. Izuku blocked a punch from Shoji and retaliated with a knee to his chin, causing Shoji to stagger back in a daze. Kirishima shouted a warning to Shoji, who looked around for Izuku, only to find him airborne, delivering a kick to Shoji's face. Shoji bounced off the ground as Izuku landed and kicked him toward Mina and Tsuyu. Tsuyu dodged, but Mina was caught off guard. Tsuyu prepared to strike but hesitated, opting instead to spit at Izuku, who dodged effortlessly. However, Tsuyu lunged at him, believing she had the upper hand, but Izuku countered by grabbing her tongue and swinging her around. Uraraka rushed in, determined to help Tsuyu, but Izuku swung Tsuyu down, knocking both girls out. Momo created a taser and aimed it at Izuku, but he ducked, causing Kirishima to be hit instead. Momo apologized as Kirishima fell unconscious. Izuku then charged at Momo, delivering a chop to her neck that knocked her out as well. Katsuki approached Izuku, aiming to attack, but Izuku struck him in the throat and redirected his arm, causing Katsuki to inadvertently blast Izumi, sending her crashing into the wall. Izuku then elbowed Katsuki in the face, breaking his nose. Katsuki, furious, attempted to charge at Izuku, but Izuku countered by slamming his palm against Katsuki's face and driving his head into the ground, knocking him out. Toru tried to speak but was interrupted by Izuku's punch to her side. Ojiro, recovering, attempted a sneak attack with his tail, but Izuku jumped behind him, grabbing his tail and throwing him at 𝐾𝐿, knocking him down. As Izuku approached Jiro and Izuku to finish things, Denki suddenly latched onto him with a smirk, claiming victory and unleashing a surge of electricity. Izuku stood firm, absorbing the shock until Denki exhausted himself and collapsed, leaving Izuku unaffected. Denki, dazed, chuckled, while Jiro expressed disbelief at Denki's failed attempt. Izuku explained that he had been struck by lightning so many times that he had become immune to weak electrical shocks. Jiro and Izuku both conceded defeat, and Izuku acknowledged their wise choice. He then walked toward the door, heading back to the dorm, leaving the defeated Class 1A behind. Izumi, emerging from the wall, limped toward Izuku, trying to stop him, but he held her back. She insisted on continuing the fight, but Izuku urged her to let it go due to her injuries. When she refused, he swiftly knocked her out with a chop to the neck, placing her gently on the floor before walking away. Jiro questioned the necessity of knocking her out, to which Izuku replied that it was the better option to prevent further harm. Jiro agreed, understanding the choice made. The scene shifted to Izuku in the principal's office, pondering why he was there. Nizu began to address him, setting the stage for what was to come. Izuku preferred to be called simply Izuku. Nizu addressed him, reminding him of the reason for his presence. Aizawa pointed out that he had severely injured his classmates, sending them to the nurse's office. Izuku defended himself, stating that it was a response to the challenges thrown at him by his peers. Aizawa questioned whether he was blaming him for the situation, to which Izuku replied that the conflict had escalated due to their provocations. Nizu interjected, emphasizing that the focus was not on who started the conflict but on the safety and well-being of the students. He declared that Izuku's actions were not heroic and announced a 3-week suspension, during which Izuku was prohibited from entering its grounds. Izuku accepted the decision, thinking about the time he would have to himself. Nizu informed him that his parents would also be notified. After leaving the main building, Izuku headed back to the dormitory to retrieve Firekeeper and FIA. However, he was intercepted by Class 1B. Tagaru confronted him, stating that their issues were not resolved. Monoma expressed his frustration over being embarrassed in their last encounter, to which Izuku retorted that it was a reflection of his character. Kendo attempted to mediate, apologizing for the past events. Izuku reminded them of their betrayal and the danger he had faced, leaving them in silence as he walked past. Pony called out to him, asking where he was going. Izuku explained that he had been suspended. The class reacted in disbelief, questioning what he had done. He mentioned that he had sent his classmates to the hospital, and while they had seen them earlier, he assured them that help was on the way. As Izuku approached the 1A dorm, he caught a familiar scent and turned to see Class 1B still trying to engage him. Suddenly, a massive bear emerged from the woods, charging at them. Izuku sprang into action, colliding with the bear and redirecting its path away from his classmates. He summoned his Morning Star mace, ready to confront the creature. The great red bear, 𝗟𝗷, stood tall and roared at Izuku, who remained unfazed. As 𝗟𝗷 swiped at him, Izuku dodged and threw daggers at the bear, which only seemed to anger it further. 𝗟𝗷 retaliated with a powerful strike that caused the ground to tremble, but Izuku skillfully avoided the attack. When 𝗟𝗷 lunged again, Izuku swung his mace, landing a solid blow that sent the bear rolling. Just as he prepared for another strike, he heard Pony scream. Turning, he saw 𝗏𝗏𝗏 trapped in the jaws of another bear. Izuku whistled loudly, drawing the second bear's attention. 𝗟𝗓𝐬 released 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and charged at Izuku, while 𝗟𝗷 got back on its feet to join the attack. Izuku backflipped over 𝗟𝗷, causing both bears to collide painfully. Seizing the moment, Izuku leaped and struck 𝗟𝐽𝐻 with his mace, delivering a decisive blow that sent the bear crashing to the ground. As 𝗟𝐽𝐻 began to fade away, indicating its defeat, Izuku turned his focus to 𝗟𝗟𝐬, who let out a roar that shook the area. Izuku felt a moment of uncertainty, realizing that 𝗟𝗟𝐬's power had increased after 𝗟𝐻's defeat. 𝗟𝗟𝐬 launched herself at him, but Izuku rolled aside just in time. However, she managed to grab him and slam him into the ground, causing shock among the onlookers. After a tense moment, 𝗟𝗟𝐬 roared victoriously, preparing to charge at the other students. In a last-ditch effort, Izuku raised his weapon and fired a shot at point-blank range, striking 𝗟𝗟𝐬 and causing her to collapse. As he slowly got back to his feet, Izuku noticed that his flask was empty. He sighed and limped toward the 1A dorm. 𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗟𝗘 checked on him, expressing concern over his injuries, but Izuku brushed it off, insisting he was fine. 𝐒𝐮𝐲 pointed out the severity of his condition, but Izuku remained unfazed, stating he just needed a drink. Ignoring the protests from Class 1B, he made his way inside the dorm and up to his room. Upon entering, he found 𝐿𝐼𝐴 and Firekeeper together. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 expressed her concern for his well-being, while Firekeeper insisted he needed healing. Izuku knelt before her, resting his head in her lap as she summoned green flames to mend his injuries. After a few moments, Firekeeper confirmed he was better, and Izuku expressed his gratitude. She reassured him of her support, and 𝐿𝐼𝐴 echoed her sentiments. Feeling uplifted, Izuku announced they were leaving the dorm. The two girls nodded in agreement, and together they exited the 1A dorm, heading toward the gates to leave you. A familiar, ear-piercing roar echoed through the air, prompting everyone to cover their ears from the sudden screech. Izuku urged Firekeeper and 𝐿𝐼𝐴 to retreat back to the dormitory as he prepared for battle. He drew his 𝐒𝐿𝐽𝐻, scanning the surroundings for the beast. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed above him, and he quickly dashed to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's attack. Turning to confront another revived beast he had previously defeated, Izuku faced the cleric beast. The creature sniffed the air and turned its gaze toward him. With a fierce lunge, the cleric beast attempted to grab him, but Izuku swiftly jumped back, pulling out his hunter pistol. He fired at the beast, the shot inflicting some pain but not enough to deter it. As he landed on the ground, Izuku charged at the cleric beast, which swung its smaller arm in an attempt to strike him. He dodged just in time, swinging his saw blade and slicing into the beast's hand, drawing its BLD. Just as he prepared to deliver a decisive blow to its face, the cleric beast leaped back and let out a mighty roar that echoed into the sky. Izuku observed a student on all fours, losing control and transforming into a beast. This sight surprised him, as the creature was a lesser, weaker, and more grotesque version of the average beast. Izuku felt a sense of shame as he swiftly moved in, using his saw blade to cleave the lesser beast in half, shocking the other students with his decisive action. Turning his attention back to the cleric beast, he witnessed it uprooting a tree and hurling it toward him. Izuku dashed forward, sliding beneath the incoming tree, and continued his advance. As he approached the cleric beast, it attempted to swat him from the air. However, Izuku shot the beast in the palm, halting its attack, and then stabbed it in the face, sliding downward to slice its face and chest. He jumped back, watching as the cleric beast stumbled and roared in pain. The sounds of disfigured screams caught his attention, and he noticed more students transforming into lesser beasts. Izuku realized that the beast's roars could turn the weak-minded into abominations. He aimed at a lesser beast and shot it in the head, putting the former student out of their misery before they could fully lose their minds. The other students watched in shock as Izuku executed the former students without hesitation or remorse. Once all the lesser beasts were defeated, Izuku turned back to the cleric beast, which had stopped stumbling and was preparing to roar again. Seizing the opportunity, he threw his saw blade at the beast's throat, silencing it and causing it to fall backward. Izuku charged at the cleric beast, pulling out his hunter axe and leaping up to swing it down into the beast's head, continuing until its face was split in two. Noticing it was no longer moving, he wiped the BLD from his face and walked away as the body began to vanish, indicating that the cleric beast had been defeated. As he headed back to find FIA and Firekeeper, he was confronted by some students from Class 1B. One of them expressed disbelief at Izuku's actions, questioning how he could kill the students who were turning into wolves. Izuku explained that they had to be put down to prevent them from becoming feral monsters, insisting he had done them a favor. Another student accused him of being a murderer, to which Izuku responded with indifference, urging them to move aside. Suddenly, they heard growling and turned to see 𝗟𝗯𝐷 trembling and drooling, capturing the attention of Class 1B. Concerned, one student asked if 𝗟𝗯𝐷 was okay, but Izuku quickly concluded that he needed to be put down. The class looked at him in shock as he pulled out a blunderbuss and loaded it with special rounds, assuring them that it would prevent 𝗟𝗯𝐷 from suffering. Despite their protests, Izuku aimed at 𝗟𝗯𝐷, but 𝗟𝗃𝗃 blocked the shot, getting sent flying back and coughing up BLD. The students were horrified, and Izuku questioned why he had intervened. He explained that if 𝗟𝗃𝗃 hadn't used his quirk, 𝗟𝗯𝐷 would have been dead the moment he went flying. As tension escalated, Izuku decided to leave and retrieve FIA and Firekeeper. Meanwhile, Class 1B rushed 𝗟𝗯𝐷 and 𝗟𝗃𝗃 to the nurse's office for help. Minutes later, 𝗟𝗯𝐷 lay in bed with a fever, and the class watched anxiously. Recovery Girl reassured them that he only had a fever and would need rest. One student expressed frustration over Izuku's earlier actions, while another suggested informing the principal about the incident. Just as some students were about to leave, 𝗟𝗯𝐷 spoke up, revealing his hunger. Kendo offered to ask for food, but 𝗟𝗯𝐷 insisted it wouldn't suffice. As he demanded meat, he suddenly punched the wall, creating a crater and startling everyone. 𝗟𝗯𝐷 began to grow larger and hairier, prompting concern among the students. Recovery Girl questioned if this was his quirk, and the students urged 𝗟𝗯𝐷 to calm down. However, he glared at Pony, revealing a crazed smile of hunger, and lunged at her, causing her to scream in fear, hoping someone would intervene. A bullet shattered the office window, striking 𝗟𝗯𝐷 in a devastating blow that left him lifeless on the ground. The sudden silence was broken by Kinoko's terrified scream, which triggered a wave of panic among the others. They began to cry and shout, while Recovery Girl attempted to soothe their fears. Meanwhile, Izuku observed the scene from a rooftop, his sniper rifle aimed at the chaos below. He reflected on his earlier warnings, knowing they had gone unheeded. FIA acknowledged his efforts, reminding him that despite their disbelief, he had saved them from a dire fate. Izuku, feeling the weight of his actions, expressed that he might seem unfeeling, but he was just like everyone else at heart. Firekeeper added that there is a certain kindness found in fire, to which Izuku agreed. He then stowed away the sniper rifle and swiftly picked up FIA and Firekeeper, making his escape from you. Before anyone could notice, the scene shifted to a hero meeting convened in the aftermath of 𝗟𝗯𝐷 Shishida's tragic death. Fat Gum questioned the purpose of their gathering, while Nizu informed the group that one of Class 1B students had been shot and killed earlier that day. Ryukyu reacted in shock, unable to comprehend the news. Nizu confirmed the seriousness of the situation, stating that a student had died in the nurse's office from a sniper shot to the back of the head. Aizawa expressed his disbelief, while Hawks remarked that he thought the nurse's office was a safe place. Mirko interrupted Hawks with a punch to his arm, urging everyone to take the matter seriously, as a child had lost their life. Edgeshot pointed out that the death occurring on school grounds would attract media attention, but Nizu was more concerned about identifying the culprit. Aizawa suggested that Izuku was responsible for the incident, but Nizu cautioned against jumping to conclusions, insisting that Izuku was a hero, not a killer. Vlad countered, mentioning that his class and others believed Izuku had harmed students who were transforming into monstrous wolf-like beings. Aizawa saw this as evidence enough to locate Izuku. 𝗟𝗃𝗃 intervened, stating that they should not send Izuku to Tartarus. Aizawa argued that rehabilitation was not an option for someone so far gone. All Might questioned Aizawa's decision to give up on Izuku, reminding him of his role as a mentor. Aizawa felt he had lost that position long ago and was just another figure in Izuku's life. Endeavor expressed frustration, believing Izuku should have faced consequences after a previous incident. Hawks defended Izuku, suggesting that self-defense justified his actions. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐴 redirected the conversation, asking for opinions on the situation. Ryukyu stated that while Izuku was unusual, he did not believe he was a murderer. Mirko observed that Izuku appeared emotionally detached, resembling a dedicated killer. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 recalled how Izuku had saved his life but concluded that capturing him was necessary for public safety. 𝐒𝐮𝐦 authorized the immediate capture of Izuku Yagi, instructing everyone to spread the word. The heroes set out to find Izuku. 𝐒𝐮𝐦 contemplated the evidence before him, believing that while Izuku might not kill without reason, justice must be served. Meanwhile, Izuku, 𝐿𝐼𝐴, and the firekeeper were in a modest house where Izuku was laying low, cooking in the kitchen while the others watched television. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 expressed curiosity about the TV, and Izuku explained its function, comparing it to a play. He was preparing teriyaki chicken and rice for their meal as they watched the news. The news reporter interrupted with breaking news about a portal that had suddenly appeared in Hosu City, which was being managed by the authorities. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 wondered about the woman on the screen, and Izuku reassured her that she was not trapped. As the report continued, a large metal arm shot out of the portal, shocking everyone as an automaton emerged, crackling with electricity. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 urged Izuku to help, and he recognized the threat as a foe he had faced before. Determined, he ran out of the house, summoned his ghostly steed, Torrent, and raced toward Hosu City. In Hosu City, chaos erupted as heroes and police struggled against a horde of murderous puppets emerging from the portal. Officers shouted in alarm, overwhelmed by the sheer number of foes. A spear flew through the air, tragically striking an officer, while a puppet with flintlock pistols aimed and fired at two heroes. One hero managed to counter by launching bricks at the puppets, but the tide of battle turned as a strong-arm puppet broke through defenses and eliminated another hero. As more puppets poured from the portal, rifleman puppets formed a firing line, preparing to attack. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 unleashed a wave of fire, incinerating some puppets while others continued their advance, undeterred by the flames. Hawks questioned the nature of their enemies, while 𝐿𝐼𝐴 urged his comrades to destroy them. More pro-heroes arrived to assist, but the relentless stream of puppets showed no signs of stopping. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 focused on the task at hand, using his powers to eliminate the threats. As the ominous figures advanced toward 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴, their unsettling smiles sent chills down his spine. ectoplasm urgently declared the need to close the portal, to which Fat Gum responded with a hint of sarcasm, rolling forward like a massive boulder and crushing several puppets beneath him. He took a deep breath and exhaled, sending the puppets flying in all directions. Soon after, firefighter puppets emerged from the portal, using their extinguishers to douse 𝐿𝐼𝐴's flames, allowing more puppets to spill through without immediate danger. Fat Gum remarked on the advanced nature of the puppets as ectoplasm created 50 clones to engage them, holding the line for a few moments. However, the situation escalated when an opera puppet appeared, unleashing a piercing note that caused everyone nearby to cover their ears, while the puppets remained unaffected. Ectoplasm narrowly avoided a spear aimed at him, cursing the puppet's high-pitched voice. Mirko, overwhelmed by the sound, pleaded for it to stop, dropping to her knees as her ears began to bleed. In the chaos, a cowboy puppet ensnared her with a lasso, tightening it around her neck. Hawks swooped down to assist Mirko but quickly retreated as a barrage of spears and bullets flew past him. He watched helplessly as Mirko was pulled toward the menacing mob of puppets. Just then, smaller portals opened above the puppets, unleashing a hailstorm of arrows that struck them, rendering many inoperative. The heroes were taken aback until a police officer urged them to look behind, revealing Izuku arriving with a wand and blade in hand. Ectoplasm was astonished to see Izuku riding a bull. Izuku dashed past the officers and heroes, leaping off the torrent that vanished into thin air. As he descended toward the remaining puppets, he declared his intent to scorch the earth. He slammed his blade into the ground, creating a fiery shockwave that engulfed the nearby puppets in flames, sending them into the air where they exploded into a shower of ash and embers. Izuku marveled at the sight of the fireflies created from the ashes. Determined to close the portal and prevent more puppets from emerging, Izuku was halted by 𝐿𝐼𝐴, who prepared to strike. As 𝐿𝐼𝐴 lunged, Izuku dodged and countered with an elbow, lifting him off the ground and tossing him aside. With Endeavor out of the way, Izuku focused on the portal when a chainsaw puppet charged at him. He executed a drop kick, sending the puppet back through the portal, and noticed it had shrunk slightly. Before he could strategize further, 𝗟𝗏 lifted him off the ground with her powers, declaring it was over for him. Izuku insisted he was not a villain, but 𝗟𝗏 refused to believe him. Just as he requested to be set down, he was suddenly snatched by the scrapped watchman, who had been waiting atop a building. With glowing red eyes and a wide grin, the watchman slammed Izuku into the ground repeatedly, leaving the heroes in shock as they witnessed the brutal display. Despite the overwhelming odds, Izuku remained resolute, staring into the watchman's eyes and expressing his acceptance of fate. The watchman, known as Murphy, experienced a vivid flashback of his childhood friends, which ignited a furious roar as he unleashed a torrent of electricity upon Izuku. The sheer force caused Izuku's eyes to burst, and he fell limp in the watchman's grasp. Murphy, reveling in his victory, dropped Izuku's motionless form to the ground. The heroes stood frozen, grappling with the reality of Izuku's demise. Power Loader stammered in disbelief, while Midnight gasped in horror. Aizawa, with a heavy heart, referred to Izuku as a problem child. The watchman turned his attention to the stunned heroes, lunging at them, but before he could reach anyone, a crimson flash descended from the sky, striking him down and creating a crater. As the smoke cleared, the heroes beheld a new figure standing atop the defeated watchman. The figure's gaze shifted to Izuku's lifeless body, and they dropped to their knees, shaking uncontrollably. With a desperate plea, they called out for Izuku, begging him to wake up and not leave them. The figure embraced Izuku's still form, trying to maintain composure as they grieved, while Inko, hearing her son's name, stood in stunned silence. 𝗟𝗏, witnessing the scene, could only stammer in confusion. 𝗟𝗏 hurried toward Izuku's body, desperate to see him again. She urged everyone to move back, her voice trembling with urgency. A voice called out, warning her that it was dangerous, but she was too focused on Izuku. In a moment of desperation, she attempted to use her telekinesis on a mysterious figure, only for the figure to evade her and swiftly strike, severing her right arm. 𝗟𝗏 cried out in pain as the figure prepared to finish her off. Just then, another pro-hero, Crust, pushed her aside and took a defensive stance, only to be pierced through the chest by the figure's blade. Cementos shouted Crust's name in horror as the figure flung him aside and charged at the next hero. The watchman attempted to intervene with a powerful downward strike, but the figure countered, slashing him across the chest. The watchman fell apart, his chest exploding as he hit the ground, defeated. The figure turned back to the remaining heroes, ready to strike again, but All Might dashed in, determined to protect them. The figure anticipated this and prepared to slash at All Might. Suddenly, Izuku appeared, standing between them, shocking everyone. He smiled at the familiar voice calling his name and lowered his sword, placing a hand on the figure's cheek. He absorbed the scarlet rot within, healing the figure as scarlet roses bloomed in his empty eye sockets. He greeted 𝗟𝐿𝐼𝐴 warmly, and she sheathed her sword, embracing him without concern for the rot. She expressed her fear of losing him, and Izuku reassured her, though he kept the truth of his death to himself. Present Mike was bewildered, questioning the situation, while Endeavor expressed disbelief at Izuku's return. 𝗟𝐿𝐼𝐴 was confused by their reactions, and Izuku urged them to ignore the chaos. 𝗟𝗏, in a fit of rage, lifted 5 cars with her telekinesis and hurled them at 𝗟𝐿𝐼𝐴. In a flash, 𝗟𝐿𝐼𝐴 swung her blade, slicing the cars effortlessly. She challenged 𝗟𝗏, who was undeterred, demanding that 𝗟𝐿𝐼𝐴 stay away from her son. As the tension escalated, Izuku began to cough up scarlet rot, halting both women. 𝗟𝗏 called out to him, concerned, while 𝗟𝐿𝐼𝐴 asked if he was all right. Izuku reassured them, downplaying his condition. 𝗟𝐿𝐼𝐴 insisted they find a safe place away from any life to prevent further spread of the rot. She lifted him and jumped away, leaving the area. 𝗟𝗏, realizing they were escaping, urged the heroes to pursue them. Endeavor rallied those with flight or speed quirks to chase after 𝗟𝐿𝐼𝐴 and Izuku. 𝗟𝗏 attempted to follow but was stopped by All Might, who insisted she needed medical attention. She struggled against him, determined to go after her son, but eventually succumbed to unconsciousness from blood loss. All Might carried her to the nearest hospital, leaving only a few heroes behind. Aizawa assessed the situation, noting they were now on cleanup duty. The remaining heroes began to cover the fallen and dispose of the remnants of the battle. Aizawa observed that the portal had vanished and contemplated its implications. Present Might commented on the bizarre turn of events, while Midnight noted that Izuku's return was unprecedented. Aizawa acknowledged the seriousness of the situation when a hero nearby began to cough violently, collapsing as scarlet liquid spilled from him. As more heroes succumbed to the rot, Midnight urged Aizawa to inform Nizu and the Safety Commission to lock down Hosu City. Hours passed, and the city transformed into a desolate wasteland as the infection spread rapidly, turning the sky and water crimson. Heroes attempted to contain the outbreak, but many fell victim to the rot themselves. In a tense meeting at the HPSC building, heroes debated their next steps. All Might insisted on saving civilians, while Endeavor argued that they were beyond saving and suggested destroying the city. Aizawa countered that many still lived there, and Best Jeanist proposed finding a way to stop the infection. Mirko suggested drastic measures, but Present Might cautioned against such actions. As the arguments escalated, the HPSC president, Beatrice Songbird, called for silence. She expressed her concern over the unfolding crisis and inquired about its origins. Aizawa explained the events leading up to the outbreak, and Beatrice processed the information, realizing the gravity of the situation. A student had inadvertently caused a significant commotion with just a cough. Aizawa confirmed the situation, and Beatrice inquired about the child's name. Aizawa replied that it was Izuku, who introduced himself, stating that everyone could simply call him Izuku. The group turned to see Izuku leaning against the office door, wearing a blndfld. He revealed that he had been banished by his own parents. Endeavor, filled with anger, charged at Izuku, intending to deliver a fiery blow. However, Izuku swiftly evaded the attack and countered by leaping at Endeavor, landing a powerful stomp on his head, forcing his face into the floorboards. Izuku remarked on Endeavor's rashness and questioned how he had become a pro-hero. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 intervened, commanding everyone to remain still. The other heroes prepared to engage, but Aizawa activated his quirk, believing he had nullified Izuku's powers. Ryukyu urged the young man to stand down, while Hawks pointed out that he was outnumbered 50-1. Izuku, undeterred, expressed his enjoyment of the odds, summoning a black steel katana. This surprised Aizawa and the other heroes, as they realized that Izuku's ability was not a quirk and was unaffected by Aizawa's power. He readied himself for a confrontation with the pro-heroes. Beatrice then commanded everyone to stand down, asserting her authority. A random hero protested, but Beatrice reiterated her order. Eventually, the heroes complied, allowing Izuku to sheath his katana at his hip. Beatrice expressed her belief that this young man could be of assistance. 𝐷𝗓𝐼𝐼𝐼 questioned the notion of help. Izuku reflected on the chaos surrounding him, feeling a mix of guilt and determination. He acknowledged that he had inadvertently contributed to the current situation. 𝐒𝐮𝐻, skeptical, responded to Izuku's claim, while Izuku sensed a heavy tension in the air. He offered his assistance, asking if they truly wanted his help. Beatrice confirmed that they did, inquiring about ways to halt the infection. Izuku suggested quarantining the entire city, warning against any drastic measures that could worsen the airborne nature of the infection. All Might expressed disbelief at the suggestion, but Izuku insisted that detonating explosives would only spread the spores further. He grimly noted that many civilians were likely already lost, urging them to encase the city in a protective barrier. Hound Dog protested, arguing that leaving people behind was unacceptable. Izuku reluctantly agreed, acknowledging the harsh reality. Night Eye pointed out the impracticality of such a plan, but Izuku maintained that it was their best option unless they had a better idea. Mirko proposed a more aggressive approach, but Izuku reiterated the dangers of bombing the city. He emphasized that the civilians were already in peril, even if they didn't realize it. Beatrice hesitated, recognizing the validity of Izuku's arguments. Nizu voiced his concerns about considering such drastic measures, but Beatrice stood firm, believing it was the only way to contain the infection. Gunhead and Manuel expressed doubts about Izuku's credibility, questioning whether he was telling the truth. As some heroes began to side with Wash, dismissing Izuku's warnings, he decided to leave the room, feeling a sense of resignation. Beatrice pondered the intelligence of her fellow heroes, while Miss Joke pleaded for a chance to save the civilians. Night Eye requested permission to call in an extraction team, and Beatrice sighed, giving herself 12 hours before implementing a full lockdown of Hosu. The heroes prepared to rescue as many uninfected individuals as possible, and helicopters soon soared toward the city. The soldier leading the extraction team briefed his team on their mission, emphasizing the urgency. However, chaos erupted when a massive arrow struck one of the helicopters, sending it spiraling down. Izuku stood atop a building, commanding 7 giant archers he had summoned. He ordered them to prevent any of the helicopters from landing safely, and the archers unleashed a barrage of arrows, causing the helicopters to crash and explode. Izuku watched the destruction unfold, feeling a grim satisfaction. He knew that drastic measures were necessary to prevent the infection from spreading further. He raised his hand, summoning 50 Black Knights to patrol the streets of Hosu. He commanded them to eliminate any infected individuals and potential survivors, believing it was the only way to contain the rot. As he monitored the situation from the rooftop, he noticed Hawks and other flying heroes approaching. Realizing they would attempt to intervene, Izuku felt a headache coming on. He needed to think of a way to keep them out without causing harm. With determination, he conjured a massive magical barrier around Hosu, preventing any heroes from entering. Outside the barrier, Vlad and Snipes were bewildered by the sudden obstruction. Hound Dog attempted to communicate with his team, but they were all stuck outside. Mirko asked Hawks if he had made it in, but he hadn't. The heroes were growing increasingly anxious, and 𝐼 used her size to peer into the city. What she saw horrified her. Bodies littered the streets, and the infected roamed freely, spreading chaos. All Might and his group were approached by terrified civilians, desperately seeking escape. They were met with an invisible barrier, causing panic among the crowd. All Might attempted to break through the barrier, but his efforts were in vain. Just then, a group of infected surged from an alley, intent on attacking the heroes. A Black Knight intervened, swiftly dispatching the zombies with a single swing of his sword, saving the civilians. The onlookers were bewildered by the knight's actions, unsure of who had come to their aid. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Lady exchanged worried glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. 𝐿ady declared that the figure before them was not a hero but a killer. As she spoke, other heroes attempted to intervene against the Black Knight, but their efforts proved futile. The Black Knight advanced, raising his sword high, and the expressions of joy on the faces of the civilians shifted to horror as he swung his weapon. All Might shouted in despair, trying once more with a powerful Detroit smash, but the barrier held firm, and he, along with the others, could only watch as the Black Knight wreaked havoc on the innocent. Frustration coursed through All Might as he pondered who was behind such a massacre, vowing to unleash his fury upon them. Meanwhile, Izuku sneezed, attributing it to allergies. He took a sip of root beer from his flask, observing the chaos below to ensure everything unfolded according to his plan. He contemplated the consequences of his actions, knowing he would likely be branded a villain after this. However, he rationalized that sacrificing thousands could save millions. After finishing his drink, he secured the flask at his hip and sat down, watching the Black Knights. His thoughts drifted to dinner plans, considering a hibachi restaurant for the girls. Suddenly, an explosion jolted him from his reverie, and he noticed a cloud of scarlet rot in the distance, raising his concern. Summoning his glaive, he infused it with frenzied flames and leaped from the rooftop, calling upon the Storm Hawk King to carry him through the sky. He soared briefly before landing on the ground as the Storm Hawk King vanished. Scanning the area, he spotted the source of the scarlet explosion. A figure reveled in the chaos, exclaiming with delight at the rot surrounding her. Recognizing her, Izuku spun his glaive and leaped from the rooftop, descending toward the figure. She noticed him and swung her spear, but he evaded her attack, countering with a flaming glaive that slashed across her chest. The figure screamed in pain, revealing herself as 𝐼𝐻𝐬, the Saint of the Bud. She expressed surprise at seeing him again, to which he replied that beggars couldn't be choosers. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 retaliated, spinning around as Izuku dodged her centipede and scorpion stinger. She lunged at him with both weapons, but he rolled aside, narrowly avoiding her attacks. He sidestepped the centipede's pincers and swiftly stabbed it through the head with his glaive, pinning it to the ground. 𝐼𝐻𝐬, furious, swung her spear, but Izuku blocked the attack. He noticed her scorpion stinger poised above her head and parried it, throwing his glaive at her, which she managed to deflect. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 taunted him, asserting that this encounter would not mirror their last. She jumped back and rolled toward him, forcing Izuku to retreat into an alleyway to avoid being crushed. Climbing onto a rooftop, he found himself surrounded by rotten butterflies. He realized the danger as the butterflies exploded into a cloud of scarlet rot behind 𝐼𝐻𝐬, who smirked, believing he was finished. However, a fire-infused glaive pierced through the cloud, striking 𝐼𝐻𝐬 in the back and causing her to scream in agony as she fell. Izuku walked through the mist, the left side of his face becoming infected and sprouting scarlet roses. He demonstrated that he could also wield the rot to his advantage, throwing a bud from his face to the ground near 𝐼𝐻𝐬, which exploded into a mist of rot. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 laughed, questioning if that was meant to hurt her, and swung her spear through the cloud, searching for him but finding only confusion. As the rot dispersed, the centipede head turned, revealing Izuku clinging to her scorpion tail. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 demanded to know what he was doing, but Izuku ignited himself and her tail with great combustion, causing her to scream as the flames spread. In desperation, she severed her scorpion tail, howling in rage. She swung her spear at him, but Izuku parried her attack and moved his glaive through the centipede head, eliciting a screech of pain. With determination, Izuku leaped at 𝐼𝐻𝐬 as she attempted to stab him with her spear. He seized the weapon, engaging in a fierce tug-of-war until he landed a punch to her face, and she retaliated in kind. They exchanged blows until Izuku finally wrested the spear from her grip, leaping high into the air. He came down with force, stabbing 𝐼𝐻𝐬 through the throat while simultaneously piercing the centipede's head. As she lay there, she remarked that he looked handsome even in his rotting state before going limp and merging with the wind, signifying her defeat. Izuku reflected on her acceptance of the rot, which was unlike most. He coughed up scarlet rot but quickly used the law of regression to cure himself, restoring the left side of his face to normal. Just as he prepared to regain high ground, a scarlet brute charged at him, attempting to crush him under its weight. Izuku impaled the brute on his glaive and tossed it aside, only to realize he was surrounded by scarlet zombies emerging from hiding. Undeterred, he mused that a little workout never hurt anyone. The zombies charged at him, prompting him to summon a second glaive and enchant it with frost magic. Now wielding both fire and ice, he spun his body, slashing through the nearest zombies while dispersing sharp clouds of fire and frost that cut down those further away. As the last of the zombies fell, Izuku prepared to ascend to higher ground when he noticed helicopters approaching the city, carrying a giant bowl. He acknowledged that the boss lady had some sense, relieved to see her. He cautioned the 7 giant archers not to shoot down the helicopters, as they posed no threat, and watched as the archers lowered their bows and began to vanish from the mortal plane alongside the 50 Black Knights. Izuku sent everyone away, thinking it was time to go home. He ran forward and called upon his torrent to escape 𝐻𝐻𝐬 before he could be trapped inside the large bowl approaching the infected city. Eventually, Izuku managed to flee 𝐻𝐻𝐬 just as helicopters arrived to place the giant bowl around the city, effectively quarantining it. No one could enter or exit. The heroes felt frustrated and upset that they couldn't reach the city to assist anyone. Some groups had witnessed the Black Knights taking down anyone they encountered without hesitation. Once back at his house, Izuku decided to cook for the day, planning to treat everyone to a hibachi restaurant once the situation calmed down. Izuku was aware that he had caused countless deaths that day, but he also recognized that he had saved many more lives than he had lost. He felt at peace with the outcome, though he knew that if the heroes discovered what had transpired, he would likely be labeled a criminal or worse. However, he wasn't overly concerned about that. Meanwhile, in another location, All For One was scheming his next move against the heroes, feeling uncertain about how to proceed. He pondered the sudden appearance of mysterious portals in 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽, questioning their significance. He wanted to make a significant impact, something monumental that would be etched into the history books, a chapter in the legacy of the Demon King, which had a certain allure to it. Just then, the doors to the room burst open, revealing Garaki in a state of distress. AFO turned on the television, revealing a quarantine bubble surrounding Hosu City. The reporter explained that the dome was preventing anyone from entering or leaving the city due to an outbreak. The Safety Commission had declared a lockdown until they could eliminate the virus within the city limits. AFO felt a sense of unease as Dr. Garaki expressed concern about a potential zombie virus, suggesting that the dead were rising. AFO dismissed the doctor's fears, believing they would be fine, but he was more curious about the cause of the outbreak. Dr. Garaki mentioned seeing footage from a city camera before the power went out, showing Izuku riding through the city on his motorcycle just before the dome descended. AFO's interest piqued, and he instructed Dr. Garaki to find the white-haired individual, eager to learn more about them. As Dr. Garaki left, AFO replayed the footage of Izuku, pausing it to contemplate the young hero's identity. The next day, at the 𝐻𝗶HC building, the heroes gathered in Beatrice's office to discuss the previous day's events. Beatrice was frustrated to learn that no hero had been able to enter Hosu City. Ectoplasm explained that a barrier had blocked their access, while Kamui Woods described watching black-armored swordsmen moving through the streets. All Might vowed to find the responsible party and ensure they faced consequences. Aizawa hesitated, hinting at a potential connection to Izuku, but All Might firmly defended the young hero, insisting he would never resort to violence. Endeavor, however, noted the cold look in Izuku's eyes, suggesting he had experienced something troubling. Nizu argued that Izuku was still a hero in training, while Ryukyu reminded them of the betrayal that had left her in a cell. Beatrice attempted to regain control of the conversation, acknowledging that Hosu had become a dangerous zone. Edge Shot confirmed the grim reality, and All Might expressed his disbelief at the situation. MDM, civilians are deceased, and people will want to know the reason for the dome's presence. Beatrice suggested that the truth should be told. Hawks expressed concern, questioning whether that was a wise decision, fearing it might incite a riot. Beatrice reassured him that as long as the crimson substance remained contained, they would be fine. She declared the meeting over, allowing everyone to leave. As the heroes exited the room, Beatrice remained, gazing out her window at the massive circular barrier enveloping Hosu City. She pondered the situation, wondering what was truly happening. Meanwhile, Izuku was at home, lounging on the couch with Maria, who was leaning against him while reading about hunting techniques. Maria shared an interesting fact about luring out a brick troll with muffins, specifically blueberry muffins, which Izuku found understandable. Maria then asked Izuku about the Waffle House, curious about why she had encountered beast men fighting over scraps near its waste box. Izuku explained that the Waffle House was a place where food was prepared, but it was also notorious for constant brawls. Maria inquired if the food was any good, to which Izuku replied that it depended on the cook's moods. Izuku continued to watch the news for any unusual occurrences, wanting to stay informed. Suddenly, 𝐿𝐼𝐼 approached him and sat between him and Maria, requesting his help in finding her daughter, who she believed was somewhere in the city. Maria questioned why 𝐿𝐼𝐼 couldn't search for her daughter herself, pointing out that she was her child. 𝐿𝐼𝐼 expressed her concern that the city was unwelcoming to those unfamiliar with its intricacies. Izuku agreed to assist 𝐿𝐼𝐼, who thanked him sincerely. Maria observed 𝐿𝐼𝐼 with a challenging gaze, prompting 𝐿𝐼𝐼 to ask if there was a problem. Maria responded defiantly, and both women drew their weapons, ready for a confrontation. However, Izuku intervened, parrying their attacks and urging them to refrain from fighting in the house, suggesting it would take time to find a larger opponent. Reluctantly, both women sheathed their weapons, and Izuku stepped outside to begin his search for 𝐿𝐼𝐼's daughter. As he departed, Maria muttered a harsh remark, and 𝐿𝐼𝐼 retorted with her own insult. The two women walked away from each other, and Izuku called upon Torrent, riding off into the city. Back at UA, Class 1A received the shocking news of Jirota's demise. Ojiro expressed disbelief that Izuku had killed him, while Mina reacted with alarm. 𝗟𝗏𝐽 realized this meant Izuku was now considered a villain. Katsuki saw this as an opportunity to confront Izuku without restraint. Lita declared that they must find and capture Izuku immediately, and the class rallied in agreement. Izuku, however, was seated at the kitchen table, casually sipping freshly brewed coffee and scrolling through his phone. He reminded them that he had previously defeated all of them. Katsuki dismissed this as old news, but Izuku pointed out that their betrayal had nearly cost him his life, something that couldn't simply be forgiven. Izumi attempted to defend their actions by claiming they had been deceived, but Izuku emphasized that their determination to betray him was what mattered most. Sato acknowledged their mistake but insisted that capturing Izuku was now the priority. Lita agreed, noting that he was out there, potentially plotting something. Katsuki suggested that Izuku was likely hiding from the heroes like a coward. Meanwhile, Izuku enjoyed a peaceful moment fishing at the dock, appreciating the tranquility. A golden eagle landed on his shoulder, prompting him to send it off in the direction of the east. Just as he was about to give up fishing, he felt a strong tug on his line. With all his strength, he reeled in a massive shark creature. As the shark creature crashed onto the dock, Izuku swiftly evaded its attack. He summoned his Silver Knight Spear and executed a series of agile maneuvers, ultimately defeating the creature. After ensuring the area was safe, he set the remains ablaze to prevent any unwanted attention and retrieved his fishing rod before riding off on Torrent. Izuku navigated through the streets of Mizudafu, Fukuoka, and Hosu, finally arriving in Jaku City, where he spotted the golden eagle perched on a light post. He instructed the eagle to lead the way, following it through the streets until he reached the woods of Jaku. Disembarking from Torrent, which vanished into thin air, he ventured deeper into the forest, calling out for the scarlet butterfly. As he walked, he noticed a pack of wolves observing him from a distance. He firmly stated that he was not prey they should pursue, causing the wolves to retreat into the underbrush. After some time, he finally located Millicent, who was gravely injured, with a wound across her stomach and missing an arm. Izuku rushed to her side, and just as he was about to carry her back home, Ryukyu descended from the trees in her dragon form, demanding to know what he was doing. Izuku skillfully evaded her attack, using his agility to escape as he realized he was being pursued by heroes. As he ran, he reassured Millicent to focus on her own well-being, while dodging various attacks from the heroes. Just then, a cement wall appeared in his path, presenting a new challenge to overcome. Izuku found himself surrounded by heroes, and as he set Millicent down, he summoned Vort's great hammer. He expressed his frustration, insisting that they were making a grave mistake. Cementos declared that the chase was over, while Hawks asserted that it was impossible for Izuku to defeat them all. Izuku, however, remained confident, recalling worse situations he had faced. Aizawa, concerned, urged Izuku to reconsider, questioning whether he truly believed he could take on the top heroes and emerge unscathed. Izuku affirmed his resolve. Mirko, eager to test his confidence, charged at him first. With a sigh, Izuku slammed Vort's great hammer into the ground, creating a shockwave that forced Mirko to leap into the air. He then leapt toward her, swinging the hammer and striking her in the stomach, sending her crashing into Hawks. As Izuku landed, he charged forward, swinging the hammer and hitting 4 heroes in one motion. Cementos attempted to block the attack but ended up breaking both of his arms and crashing through several trees. Hawks rushed at Izuku, unleashing a flurry of feather blades, but Izuku skillfully parried the attack and countered with a punch that knocked out 3 of Hawk's teeth and left him with a black eye. Seizing the opportunity, Izuku grabbed Hawks by the neck and hurled him toward Kamui Woods. Death Arms, Endeavor, and All Might then rushed Izuku. He tossed Vort's great hammer into the air and dashed toward Endeavor, delivering a powerful punch to his chest, followed by a karate chop to Death Arm's throat, and a swift kick to All Might's head. Afterward, he leaned on Vort's great hammer, urging the heroes to walk away and let him take Millicent to safety. Edge Shot charged at Izuku, transforming into a thin line to pierce his defenses, but Izuku dodged expertly. Best Jeanist managed to ensnare Izuku in his wires, but Izuku took a deep breath and unleashed a burst of flames, burning the wires and freeing himself. In a swift motion, he blitzed Best Jeanist and headbutt him, causing him to fall to the ground. Izuku reassured Millicent that they would soon be safe. She, in turn, expressed her ability to manage her injuries. As Izuku dodged a kick from ectoplasm, he swung Vort's great hammer down, creating a crater and sending ectoplasm's clones flying. Present Mike shouted at Izuku, prompting him to cover his ears and kick a rock that struck Mike between the eyes, knocking him out. Aizawa and Midnight then charged at Izuku. Midnight released her sleeping gas, but Izuku jumped back just as Aizawa threw a punch. Izuku blocked the attack with Vort's great hammer, causing Aizawa to hurt his hand. Izuku then threw Aizawa toward Midnight, who dodged the incoming hero but was met with a knee to the face from Izuku, sending her flying. Izuku pleaded for the heroes to let him take Millicent to safety. Snipes offered assistance if he surrendered, but Izuku refused. Gunhead warned that he had little choice, either Millicent would die, or he would accept their help. Izuku remained resolute, swinging Vort's great hammer and shaking the ground, causing the heroes to stumble. As Izuku scooped up Millicent and began to run, Endeavor shouted for him to return. Stopping in his tracks, Izuku looked at Millicent, who nodded. He set her down, put away Vort's great hammer, and summoned Iron Ball around his fists. He challenged Endeavor, who taunted him, but was abruptly silenced when an Iron Ball struck him in the face, sending him crashing past the heroes and into a tree. Izuku remarked on Endeavor's abusive nature before returning to Millicent and leaving the heroes behind. He offered her a sip from his healing flask, which healed her wounds but did not close the gash on her side or regrow her arm. Calling upon Torrent, he rode back to the house with Millicent in his arms. Millicent expressed her gratitude for his rescue, and Izuku explained that he had followed the eagle's guidance. She wished to be more than just battle partners, but Izuku hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Millicent reassured him that they were not related and that their age difference was not an issue. Izuku reminded her that he was dating her mother, but Millicent playfully suggested it could be a 2-for-1 special. He promised to consider her request. As they traveled, Millicent revealed that she had been attacked by a strange man who enjoyed liking BLD and called himself Stain. Izuku acknowledged her bravery and resolved to confront Stain. That night in Mizudafu, a figure leapt from rooftop to rooftop, clutching a bleeding side. He was startled to see Izuku with a hunting rifle, and as he attempted to flee, he was shot in the foot, causing him to fall onto a pile of garbage. Izuku approached, ready to confront the man who had harmed someone close to him. The figure, now identified as Stain, demanded to know who Izuku was and why he was interfering. Izuku declared that Stain had attacked a red-haired girl with one arm. Stain dismissed her as a beast, claiming that the portals appearing all over Japan had unleashed monsters and diseases. Izuku challenged Stain's self-proclaimed heroism, asserting that he was merely a man obsessed with a misguided cause. As tensions escalated, Izuku fired another shot, but Stain dodged, retaliating with a knee to Izuku's face, sending him crashing into a wall. The confrontation was far from over, and Izuku was determined to put an end to Stain's rampage. Izuku seized Stain by the throat, his grip tightening as he aimed the barrel of his rifle at Stain's head. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, a feather blade pierced through his stomach. Turning around, he spotted Hawks, whose expression reflected shock at the intensity in Izuku's eyes. Izuku slammed Stain against the wall, redirecting his aim toward Hawks and fired. Hawks dodged the bullet and charged at Izuku, who executed a front flip over him and kicked him in the back, sending him crashing into the wall beside Stain. Izuku demanded Hawks to step aside. As Izuku prepared to shoot Stain again, Aizawa's scarf swept the rifle from his grasp. Sighing, Izuku glanced back to catch Vlad's fist. Vlad questioned Izuku about his actions, asking if he had killed 𝗟𝗓𝐻. Izuku hesitated, explaining that 𝗟𝗓𝐻 was about to turn. Before he could finish, Vlad struck him across the face. Unfazed, Izuku retaliated with a gut punch, sending Vlad sprawling into Aizawa. Izuku then dodged another feather blade from Hawks, elbowing him in the face and slamming his head into the ground. Noticing that 𝐼𝐻 had vanished, Izuku felt frustration wash over him. He sprinted up the brick wall and onto the roof, scanning for 𝐻𝐻. Spotting him leaping from rooftop to rooftop, Izuku began his pursuit. Suddenly, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 leaped in with an axe kick, but Izuku blocked it, grasped her leg, and slammed her down through the rooftop into the building below. Realizing 𝐻𝐻 had escaped, Izuku decided to retreat, vowing to catch him next time. He returned home to rest, evading the heroes still in pursuit, leaving the others defeated. The next day at 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩𝐽, the heroes convened to strategize on capturing Izuku. Aizawa expressed frustration over their near capture the previous night. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 acknowledged Izuku's strength, while Nizu inquired about his nighttime activities. Hawks suggested that Izuku had been pursuing the hero killer, 𝐻𝐻. Nizu found this intriguing, and All Might emphasized the need to prevent Izuku from getting to 𝐻𝐻. Ryukyu proposed a bold idea. What if they allowed Izuku to eliminate 𝐻𝐻, then ambushed him afterward? All Might was taken aback, but Ryukyu explained that 𝐻𝐻 had harmed many heroes, and capturing both could be advantageous. Nizu agreed to the plan, suggesting they intervene before Izuku could deliver the final blow. Present Mike and Midnight expressed their support, while Hound Dog was eager to take action. Nizu concluded the meeting, instructing everyone to prepare for the night ahead, pondering what had driven Izuku to hunt 𝐻𝐻. Meanwhile, Izuku was peacefully sleeping in Firekeeper's lap while the other girls watched TV. Nia and Millicent were chatting in the kitchen. Millicent expressed her longing to share Izuku with her mother, which Nia found a bit strange. However, Millicent insisted that their bond with Izuku and the other girls made it acceptable. After some back and forth, Nia agreed to the idea, and the two embraced before joining the others in the living room. As they settled in, Firekeeper fiddled with the remote, accidentally changing the channel to the news. The reporter announced that the hero killer, 𝐻𝐻, had been increasingly active, not only targeting heroes but also engaging with the monsters emerging from random portals. Millicent recognized 𝐻𝐻 as the one who had taken her arm, prompting Izuku to wake up and inquire about it. Millicent explained that he had taken her prosthetic arm as a trophy before leaving her behind. Silently, Izuku rose from the couch and headed upstairs to his room. Once there, he retrieved a rifle he had crafted himself from beneath his bed, determined to take action. That night in Mizutofu, Japan, 𝐻𝐻 was on the prowl for heroes or any portal fiends. He noted the absence of fakes that evening and decided to search for more of these creatures. As he leaped from rooftop to rooftop, he contemplated Izuku's concern for the fiend he had eliminated, suspecting that Izuku might be working with them against humanity. 𝐻𝐻 dismissed the thought, vowing not to let any sympathizers stand in his way. A bullet whizzed through the air, striking 𝐻𝐻 in the shoulder and causing him to fall face-first onto the rooftop. Izuku stood atop a hotel, observing the scene unfold. He noted 𝐻𝐻 slowly rising and attempting to flee, prompting him to put away his rifle and blend into the shadows. The heroes emerged from their hiding spots, rushing to Izuku's location. Vlad informed everyone that 𝐻𝐻 was on the hotel roof, while Aizawa instructed them to form a perimeter around the area. The sound of multiple police cars echoed as they arrived to secure the vicinity and locate Izuku. Meanwhile, Izuku had already slipped away, following the BLD trail left by 𝐻𝐻. As he pursued the trail, the heroes were left searching aimlessly for him. Izuku leaped from rooftop to rooftop until he reached the apartment district in Hosu, where the BLD led him to a medium-sized warehouse. He landed on the roof, cut a hole, and descended into the dark interior. Inside, he sighed, wondering where 𝐻𝐻 was. Suddenly, 𝐻𝐻's voice boomed, declaring that Izuku was finished. Before 𝐻𝐻 could finish his sentence, Izuku swung his rifle like a bat, striking 𝐻𝐻 in the mouth and knocking him to the ground. Izuku seized 𝐻𝐻 by the collar, demanding to know the location of the arm. 𝐻𝐻 feigned ignorance, but Izuku's frustration boiled over. He stomped on 𝐻𝐻's leg, causing him to cry out in pain, then silenced him with a sharp slap. Izuku pressed for answers about the prosthetic arm taken from Millicent. 𝐻𝐻, still defiant, claimed he didn't know who she was. In a fit of anger, Izuku hurled 𝐻𝐻 against the wall, where the lights flickered on, revealing an array of tools and gadgets designed for combat. Izuku advanced on Stain, his agitation palpable, and stomped on his chest, demanding to know where the arm was. Stain coughed, mocking Izuku's anger, but Izuku remained resolute. Stain finally revealed that he had indeed taken the arm from a redhead he had killed. When Izuku's cold gaze met Stain's, he pointed toward the wall. Izuku turned to see Millicent's arm hanging there. He retrieved it and made his way toward the exit. Stain, bleeding heavily, called Izuku a traitor. Izuku paused, glancing back at him. Stain accused him of protecting those he deemed unworthy. Izuku responded with a grim acknowledgement that they were all stuck together, and it was a matter of adapting or perishing. With one last look, he exited the warehouse, leaving Stain behind. Time passed, and the scene shifted to a courtroom where Stain was on trial. The judge announced the verdict. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 was found guilty and sentenced to 35 years in Tartarus prison. As the guards skirted him out, reporters swarmed, capturing the moment. Millicent, watching the news, expressed disbelief that Izuku had not killed Stain. Male Nia and FIA speculated about his motives, while Firekeeper suggested he might be showing mercy. Maria doubted Izuku would show any mercy to his enemies, and Millicent felt relieved to have her arm returned. Suddenly, chaos erupted as 3 sniper shots rang out, fatally wounding Stain. The crowd panicked, scattering in all directions. The news broadcast abruptly cut off, leaving the girls in shock. Meanwhile, Izuku found refuge in an abandoned building, contemplating the chaos Stain had caused. He reflected on the danger of having another fanatic spreading his ideology. As he prepared to leave, 𝐾𝐮𝐬 and Shigaraki observed him from the shadows. Shigaraki ordered 𝐾𝐮𝐬 to follow Izuku and report back. As Izuku disappeared into the night, Shigaraki pondered who he truly was. The next day in Mizudafu, news of Stain's death spread rapidly, shaking public trust in heroes. In the HPSC building, Beatrice listened to the heroes argue about their next steps. Frustrated, she demanded silence, questioning who had killed Stain. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 suggested it was Izuku, but All Might challenged that notion, seeking clarity on Izuku's motives. Aizawa confirmed he had witnessed Izuku's confrontation with Stain, insisting it had to be him. All Might remained skeptical, considering the possibility of another perpetrator. Lady expressed uncertainty about the situation, while Mirko insisted it had to be the child unless there was another unknown sniper. Endeavor requested permission to capture the boy with overwhelming force. Inko interjected, stating that there was no need for such measures since he was just a boy. Death Arms reminded everyone that the red-haired woman had previously harmed him. Inko acknowledged this but questioned its relevance. Death Arms pointed out that the boy knew the red-haired lady. Ingenium confirmed that she had also put crust in the hospital. Iwabumi agreed, and Beatrice, after considering their points, decided to allow the capture. She authorized the heroes to use lethal methods if necessary, concluding the meeting. Suddenly, something large flew past the building window, capturing everyone's attention. Some heroes attempted to look outside until Izuku appeared, clinging to the window, yelling and pointing forward. The pro-heroes were taken aback to see him. Izuku then leaped forward, firing his wrist grappling hook and soaring through the air, followed by 8 other figures zooming past the window. Hawks questioned who those individuals were, and Endeavor, dismissing the concern, jumped out of the window to pursue them, with other flying heroes following suit while the rest rushed out of the meeting room, leaving Beatrice behind, who lamented having just cleaned the window. Back with Izuku, he swung through the city using the grappling technology he had developed with a new friend, chasing after a dragon. Another figure swung beside him, inquiring about the plan. Izuku summoned the spear of the Impaler and hurled it at the dragon with great force. The spear pierced the dragon's back and exploded into a cloud of flames, causing it to crash onto the city streets. He then encouraged Wilder to take his turn. Wilder shot his grappling hook onto the dragon's back, speeding down toward it with an iron stake ready. Upon reaching the dragon, he launched the stake, which exploded, sending him back but leaving him unharmed. The dragon roared in pain as Izuku dove down, attaching the stake driver to his arm. He swung his arm forward, stabbing the stake driver into the dragon's back, drilling deeper and causing more pain until he pressed a button, launching the stake deep into the dragon. Izuku then jumped off, landing next to 𝐼𝐼𝐷, who noted that his stake hadn't exploded yet. Izuku urged him to wait. The two watched as the dragon slowly began to rise again until another figure dove down, driving the stake deeper into its back. The resulting explosion sent the figure spiraling through the air until Izuku caught her. She explained that she noticed only one explosion had gone off and decided to help cause the second one. 𝐼𝐼𝐷 found her response understandable, and she thanked Izuku. After Izuku set her down, the others arrived to see the dragon they had been pursuing rise and roar, summoning lightning that struck the ground around them, causing destruction. Izuku recognized the dragon, 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, and noted that he hadn't expected to see him so soon. 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 raised an arm, summoning a red lightning rod and throwing it at the group, who scattered to avoid it before charging toward him. 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 flew into the air, getting struck by lightning multiple times, creating an electrical barrier. Izuku asked 𝗟𝗏𝗏 if she could do something about it, and she waved her wand, summoning a mini moon. She launched it at 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, who attempted to send it back with his tail. However, 𝗟𝗏𝗏 jumped forward, grabbing the mini moon and throwing it back at 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, hitting him in the chest and causing an explosion that knocked him down. Izuku and the others stayed back while some charged toward 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, ready to attack. Suddenly, 𝗟𝗏𝐽 landed in her dragon form, commanding them to stop. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 then flash-stepped in, swinging his blade and slicing across 𝗟𝗏𝐽's nose and left eye, prompting her to scream. Revenant retaliated with 2 hammers to her jaw, while 𝗟𝗏𝗏 swung an axe into her forehead. 𝐼𝐼𝐷 front-flipped over 𝗟𝗏𝐽, and Duchess and Guardian simultaneously struck her face. 𝗟𝗏𝗏 fired a 𝐵LD arrow into her right eye, and 𝐼𝐼𝐴 shot a giant arrow that pierced her chest. 𝗟𝗏𝗽 roared in pain before collapsing, now blind and unconscious. Izuku observed the scene, feeling a mix of emotions. Mirko and Hawks rushed toward 𝐼𝐼𝐴 and 𝗟𝗏𝗏, but Izuku intervened, grabbing them by the throat and slamming them to the ground. He leaned in close, whispering that if they stayed down, they wouldn't be harmed. Mirko protested, but Izuku insisted he was trying to keep them safe. He released them and approached the others dealing with 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, asking 𝐼𝐼𝐴 if he could make the shot. 𝐼𝐼𝐴 confidently replied that it was child's play. He fired 4 arrows at 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, hitting him in the leg, knee, chest, and neck, causing the dragon to roar in pain. Izuku then called for Duchess to cloak him. She nodded and ran toward him, and as they got close, Izuku spun with her, turning them invisible as they moved closer. He then shouted for Guardian to fly, urging him to take action. Guardian soared upward, seizing Izuku and propelling him forward toward 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. As Izuku uncloaked, he drove a great sword into 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏's head, prompting the dragon to let out a final roar before collapsing and vanishing, signaling the defeat of Lich Dragon 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. Izuku felt a surge of power from this victory, gaining the remembrance of the Lich Dragon. He realized he must have lost his summon when 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 returned to life, and now he needed to collect the others again. 𝗟𝗏𝗏 commented on the excitement of the battle, while Revenant expressed the thrill of being a 𝗏𝗏𝗏, appreciating the convenience of the grapple hook. Duchess admitted that the initial fear had faded as she grew accustomed to the chaos. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 then questioned their next move. Before Izuku could respond, All Might unleashed a powerful punch at 𝗟𝗏𝗏, who surprisingly caught All Might's fist, eliciting chuckles from him and the other heroes. 𝗟𝗏𝗏 then retaliated with a punch that knocked out several of All Might's teeth, sending him spiraling into a nearby car. 𝗏𝐻𝐬 cried out in alarm, and Burnin rallied the heroes to charge at the Night Rain crew, who prepared to counterattack. Izuku, however, intervened by stomping the ground, causing stone pillars to rise between the two sides. He insisted that they couldn't kill the heroes, despite 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Duchess arguing that the heroes had attacked first. Izuku attempted to reason with them but was interrupted when Mirko leaped over the stone pillars, aiming an axe kick at Duchess. In a swift motion, Izuku jumped up, grabbing Mirko's leg and tossing her aside, landing atop a stone pillar. Frustrated, Izuku expressed his annoyance at the impatience of the heroes, declaring that if they wanted to meet their end, he could arrange it. He raised his hand, using fire magic to conjure a miniature sun that startled the heroes. He warned them that they could have a one-way ticket to the Grim Reaper. Aizawa recognized the danger, prompting Present Mic to shout for everyone to flee. As the heroes scrambled away, Izuku gritted his teeth and took a deep breath before launching the mini-sun into the air. He donned a helmet to shield himself from the impending explosion and clapped his hands together, triggering a blinding flash that disoriented the heroes. As the chaos settled, Izuku removed his helmet and descended from the pillar, apologizing for his outburst. He explained that the heroes had been a nuisance since his return. Revenant questioned why he didn't eliminate them, to which Izuku replied that when they weren't bothering him, they actually fulfilled their roles in dealing with others he preferred to avoid. Guardian remarked on the troubles of Izuku's life, but he reassured them that he could manage. Before they could continue their conversation, another portal opened, and a new dragon emerged, roaring fiercely. Izuku recognized it as 𝐒𝐮𝐬. The dragon unleashed a chilling breath that froze the city below. As the group prepared to confront 𝐒𝐮𝐬, Izuku was suddenly shot in the back, crashing through a building and landing amidst shattered glass. Snipe, rifle in hand, declared his success and urged the team to advance. Ectoplasm questioned the necessity of the lethal force, but Snipe was cut off when Izuku retaliated by shooting his grapple hook into 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿's leg and speeding towards Snipe, 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿, Ectoplasm, and upon reaching them, Izuku snapped his fingers, conjuring a fire magic circle that erupted beneath them, causing burns to all but himself due to his fire resistance. As the fire subsided, Snipe, 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿, Ectoplasm, and 13 fell unconscious from their injuries. Izuku then faced the remaining heroes. Hawks and Ingenium charged at him, but Izuku swiftly incapacitated them with a touch, sending electric shocks through their bodies. He dodged a fiery punch from Endeavor, retaliating with a slap and a headbutt that broke Endeavor's nose, following up with a karate chop to his throat. Izuku stomped on Endeavor's leg, breaking it, and hurled him toward other heroes. Death Arms attempted to punch him, but Izuku caught his fist and put him in a headlock, rendering him unconscious before tossing him aside. He then evaded 𝗟𝗏𝐿𝐴𝐷's foot and fired his grapple hook into her body, racing up her form until he reached her face, ready to strike. Izuku struck 𝗟𝗏𝐿𝐴𝐷 directly between her eyes with a powerful punch, causing her to lose consciousness and fall backward toward some of the other heroes. Midnight warned everyone of the impending danger, while Fat Gum shouted for everyone to run. The heroes scattered just before 𝗟𝗏𝐿𝐴𝐷 hit the ground with a resounding thud, sending dust flying into the air. As the dust settled, Izuku took advantage of the confusion, delivering swift punches to the unsuspecting heroes caught in the cloud. Once visibility returned, Fat Gum, Midnight, Present Mic, 𝐼𝐼𝐬, Aizawa, Vlad, Hound Dog, Power Loader, Gang Orca, and Kamui Woods were seen on the ground, incapacitated. Izuku surveyed the scene and decided he had made his point. He declared that this should serve as a lesson not to underestimate someone who had faced challenges before. With a swift motion, he shot his grapple hook and sped off to catch up with the Night Rain crew, eventually finding them either frozen or knocked out. Using fire magic, he warmed them up, and then he inquired about what had happened. Duchess explained that 𝐒𝐮𝐬 had caught them off guard, while Raider added that they had been unprepared for his tactics. Revenant lamented their embarrassment at the hands of the icy creature, and Iron Eye noted that 𝐒𝐮𝐬 was still out there somewhere. Izuku acknowledged the situation as problematic, but Recluse pointed out that Izuku was bleeding. He realized he had been shot but assured them he would be fine after removing the bullet back home. Duchess asked if they could accompany him, expressing their lack of a place to stay, and Revenant firmly stated he refused to remain on the streets. Izuku welcomed them to follow him as he ran toward his house, having embarrassed the heroes for a second time. Meanwhile, on a rooftop, 𝐿 and Shigaraki observed the group. 𝐿 found the situation intriguing, noting the addition of more players to their game, while Shigaraki expressed concern over �ґ𝐻𝐬's absence for 3 days. 𝐿 reassured him that �ґ𝐻𝐬 was likely being cautious to avoid capture. The two then departed the area, heading back to their base. Back at Izuku's house, he instructed the Night Rain crew to make themselves comfortable. He then descended into the basement, where 𝐾𝐮𝐲 was chained to a chair. Summoning a cosmic blade, Izuku confronted 𝐾𝐮𝐲, demanding answers about 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐬's whereabouts. 𝐾𝐮𝐲 pleaded for Izuku to keep the weapon away from him, but Izuku insisted on getting the information he needed. Later, Izuku was seen in the woods, following a trail of icy destruction that would lead him to 𝗂𝐿𝐬. He reflected on the creature, noting that according to the Night Rain crew, 𝗂𝐿𝐬 was a Night Lord with ice powers, similar to 𝗪𝗰 but without the family issues. Meanwhile, 𝗪𝗰 sneezed, prompting Ojiro to check on him. Mina asked if anyone had seen Izumi, and Sato mentioned she had been in her room for days. Katsuki remarked that ever since Izuku had defeated 𝗏𝐵's creature and left, she had been complaining about him. Izuku defended Izuku, stating that he could easily defeat Katsuki. Denki pointed out that it wasn't a good look for Katsuki to speak ill of Izuku, while Kirishima acknowledged the seriousness of the situation, mentioning that Izuku had killed 𝗍𝗏. Tsuyu suggested they needed to be ready to capture Izuku whenever the opportunity arose, and Mineta expressed concern about Izuku's confrontations with pro-heroes. 𝗪𝗰 stated they couldn't let Izuku get away with his actions, and Mina insisted they needed to set him straight. Ida declared that once Aizawa gave the green light, they would find and capture their rogue classmate. Ochako secretly hoped to finally connect with Izuku. The class agreed to the plan, though 𝗟𝗓 preferred to avoid any physical confrontations. As Izuku continued his pursuit of 𝗂𝐿𝐬, he caught the creature resting and quickly wrapped chains around its neck, taking control of its movements. 𝗂𝐿𝐬 soared into the air, unleashing a thunderous roar that triggered a snowstorm affecting multiple cities. Izuku summoned the sacred chime hammer and leaped above 𝗂𝐿𝐬, preparing to strike. 𝗂𝐿𝐬 plummeted downward, spiraling through the air as Izuku held on tightly. When 𝗂𝐿𝐬 crash-landed in the woods, large and small shards of ice erupted around him from the impact, transforming a section of the forest into pure ice. Izuku dismounted from 𝗂𝐿𝐬, relieved to see he was still alive, albeit with a massive headache. He approached 𝗂𝐿𝐬's head and looked him in the eye, proposing that instead of fighting, 𝗂𝐿𝐬 could become his summon. After contemplating the offer and not wanting to endure another blow to the head, 𝗂𝐿𝐬 closed his eyes and lowered his head in acceptance. Izuku placed his hand on 𝗂𝐿𝐬's forehead, and he began to disappear, indicating that 𝗂𝐿𝐬, miasma of night, had been turned into a summon. Izuku noticed it was snowing heavily as he walked through the snow and ice, leaving the forest behind. Upon reaching the streets of Mizutofu, he saw them blanketed in snow. Excitedly, he fell backward and began making a snow angel, reveling in the moment. Meanwhile, others were struggling to cope with the sudden snow and freezing temperatures. Cars, buildings, and even planes began to freeze, prompting people to rush indoors to avoid becoming frozen statues. Beatrice expressed her disbelief at the rapid weather change, while agents reported power outages and the bizarre phenomenon of people freezing solid. They were in a state of panic, unsure of how to address the situation. Back with Izuku, he glided through the icy streets, noting their eerie silence. He realized he needed to fix this soon but decided to enjoy the moment for now. As he skated, he stumbled upon a record shop and picked up a Christmas record. He placed it on the player, and a montage began. Izuku ice skated through the streets with the Night Rain crew, teaching them how to skate, though they often fell down. They built a snowman together, and Maria crafted a replica of the astral clock tower out of snow. The group engaged in a lively snowball fight, with various antics unfolding, including snow being summoned and fastballs being thrown. Izuku held Millicent's hand while they skated, their movements resembling a ballet on ice. Raider sent a frozen truck sliding across the street, ricocheting off other frozen vehicles. Firekeeper and Duchess chatted atop a frozen car, while Izuku rode Torrent through the streets, singing a cheerful tune. Recluse manipulated snowflakes into mini frost fireworks, lighting up the sky with blue sparks. The crew enjoyed a friendly competition, chugging eggnog to see who would pass out first, while Executor painted a picture of everyone together. As they played hockey, the game was interrupted by a playful fight between Mailnia and Maria. Duchess and Wilder found a zoo and playfully interacted with penguins. Raider even managed to win a playful tussle with a polar bear. Guardian freed a snow owl, keeping it as a companion, while 𝐼𝐼𝐸 decided to adopt a panther cub. Izuku gifted Firekeeper a fire-breathing salamander and 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐻 a seal. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 painted a scene of Guardian conversing with birds, finding it amusing. Meanwhile, Revenant playfully engaged with seals, and 𝐼𝐼𝐸 and Millicent discovered the joys of hot chocolate for the first time. Izuku found another bakery and crafted gingerbread cookies shaped like various items, ensuring that the fun continued as they all enjoyed the winter wonderland together. Duchess and 𝐒𝐮𝐲 created a snowman that had the upper half resembling Wilder and the lower half resembling a mermaid. Later, they would conspire as they dreamt by the fire. 𝗟𝗏𝐻, the only person barely able to withstand the cold, spotted Izuku and attempted to confront him. The group, including Izuku, Millicent, 𝐼𝐼𝐸, Maria, and the Night Rain crew, soon overwhelmed 𝗟𝗏𝐻. As they walked away, 𝐼𝐼𝐸 took the opportunity to relieve the defeated 𝗟𝗏𝐻 of his wallet. The snow continued to fall as Izuku and the others returned to the house, enjoying hot chocolate and watching movies. Duchess remarked on how nice it was, and 𝐒𝐮𝐲 agreed, expressing how fun it had been to be outside. Guardian, not a fan of the cold, admitted that the experience had been an exception. Wilder asked Izuku if the sport they hadn't played was called hockey, to which Izuku confirmed it was a rough sport played on ice. Revenant expressed interest in the violence involved, while Recluse wondered how the television made pictures move. Izuku explained that movies were made in specific locations. Millicent noted that the snow outside was getting heavier, and Izuku, after checking, confirmed that it indeed had increased. 𝐼𝐼𝐸 warned Izuku that the snow was worsening, and he decided to venture outside, with Revenant opting to join him. The two stepped into the snowstorm, navigating through the deep drifts. Revenant climbed onto Izuku's shoulder to avoid getting buried. She commented on the perks of being a doll, while Izuku mentioned that frostbite could be a nuisance. To stay warm, Izuku ignited his soul, creating a comforting heat around them. Revenant felt the warmth and cautioned him not to overheat, and Izuku assured her that he was only trying to stay warm. As they continued, Izuku sensed something was amiss and halted. Revenant, sensing his unease, drew her great swords, ready for a confrontation. Izuku prepared his flail, scanning the area until a figure suddenly appeared before him, wielding a scythe. The figure swung at Izuku, but Revenant blocked the attack. Izuku swung his flail, but the figure evaded and vanished into the snowy fog. Listening intently, Izuku concentrated and could hear the figure's footsteps in the snow. Determined, Izuku took one of Revenant's great swords and fashioned a prosthetic arm from his bone marrow and magical flames. He aimed the new arm at the ground, and Revenant warned him that it could be dangerous. Izuku assured her that it would only blow off his legs, not kill them both. As the figure prepared to charge, Izuku leaped up and unleashed a fiery blast from his prosthetic, propelling them through the air until they landed in the snow. Revenant emerged from Izuku's embrace and looked back at the scene, noticing a large patch of snow missing, revealing the road. Izuku stood up, and Revenant asked if their plan had worked. Just then, the figure reappeared behind them, swinging their scythe. Izuku blocked the attack with his prosthetic, holding the figure at bay. As he looked up, the figure stepped forward, revealing themselves as Priscilla, who greeted Izuku with a smile and put away her scythe. She picked him up in a warm embrace, thrilled to see him after such a long time. Priscilla expressed her joy at their reunion, and Izuku reciprocated her feelings. Revenant, however, was curious about Priscilla's heritage and asked who she was. Priscilla, noticing Revenant's confusion, gently inquired about her parents. Revenant clarified that she was not trying to be disrespectful, but simply curious. Izuku introduced Priscilla as a half-human, half-dragon, and Priscilla explained her origins, sharing that her father had not spoken to her in years. Revenant expressed her sorrow for Priscilla's situation, revealing her own tragic past. She vowed to seek revenge on those who had harmed her family. Priscilla listened sympathetically, and Izuku noted that they needed to stop the snowstorm before it overwhelmed the city. Priscilla acknowledged the severity of the weather and agreed that they needed to act. As they traveled through the snow together, Izuku suddenly spotted a figure moving toward them. He warned that no ordinary person could survive in such conditions. the silhouette quickened its pace, charging at them. Izuku summoned his great sword, ready for whatever lay ahead. Izuku faced the Boreal Knight, spinning around to block its attack. The knight, known for its icy prowess, pushed him back before dashing forward, moving its blade at him. Izuku managed to block the strike and leaped into the air, swinging his sword down. The Boreal Knight sidestepped, evading the blow, and exhaled a chilling gust of frost, which Izuku narrowly avoided. The knight lunged at him again, but Izuku parried the move, delivering a punch to the knight's gut before stabbing it through the chest. However, the Boreal Knight retaliated, spewing frost that momentarily blinded Izuku and caused frostbite on his face. Shivering from the cold, he threw the knight off his great sword, sending it crashing into a nearby wall. Despite the pain, Izuku prepared himself for the next attack. The Boreal Knight lunged again, but Izuku swung his great sword, cutting the knight in half. As it began to fade away, he warmed his face with his flaming hand, easing the frostbite. Priscilla expressed her concern for Izuku, asking if he was all right. He reassured her that he was fine and noted how much he had improved with his sword skills since she last saw him. Revenant, eager to move on, urged them to escape the cold. Izuku glanced at her, noticing she was nearly buried in snow, and lifted her onto his shoulder as they continued their journey through the freezing landscape. The trio walked for a long time, with Priscilla seemingly unaffected by the cold, while Izuku struggled to keep warm as the temperature dropped. Eventually, they reached the frozen gates of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐬, which appeared to be partially encased in ice. Revenant suggested it could provide shelter from the cold, but Izuku hesitated, preparing himself for what lay ahead. He broke the gates open with a punch, and he and Priscilla stepped inside, greeted by darkness. Priscilla noted the lack of light, prompting Izuku to clap his hands together, conjuring floating fireballs that illuminated the area and provided warmth. The light attracted the attention of students inside the building, who expressed their surprise and relief at the warmth. Priscilla remarked on the frightened expressions of the students, and Izuku explained that being in the dark for too long could cause fear. As they moved through the halls, Izuku lit the way with his flaming hand, and the students stepped aside, watching him pass. He eventually reached the principal's office and opened the door to find 𝐒𝐮𝐬, who looked up in surprise. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 mentioned the power outage and suggested that Izuku could help turn on the generator outside. Izuku, however, expressed his reluctance to assist, preferring to wait out the storm. Priscilla encouraged him to help 𝐒𝐮𝐬, who humorously identified himself as a chimera. Reluctantly, Izuku agreed to find the generator, despite the heavy snowfall outside. As they left the office, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 watched them go with a smile. Outside, Izuku reflected on why he was helping 𝐒𝐮𝐬, feeling conflicted about his past with the school. Priscilla noticed his distraction and asked if he was all right, to which he replied that he was simply deep in thought. Revenant inquired about his history as a former student, prompting Izuku to share his story of being a star student who was framed and betrayed by his classmates and staff. This revelation angered Revenant and saddened Priscilla, who hugged Izuku, a tear escaping her eye. She expressed her sorrow for his past, and he reassured her that he had moved on. As they continued, whispers from the students reached them, revealing their fear and suspicion of Izuku. One student exclaimed that he was the one who had harmed a classmate, and panic spread among them. Izuku warned them to remain silent and stay put, asserting his presence. He stepped outside into the snowstorm, which had lessened but remained fierce. Revenant questioned why they were helping the students, suggesting they could leave them to their fate, but Priscilla reminded her that they were just children. Izuku, determined to complete their task, agreed to find the generator quickly. Priscilla asked if he harbored any hatred for his former friends, to which Izuku replied that he had let go of most emotions, holding on to only what was necessary. He expressed disappointment rather than hatred, emphasizing the importance of not clinging to anger. As they continued their journey, the trio remained focused on their goal, navigating through the snow and the challenges that lay ahead. Snow fell gently as Izuku used his pyromancy to clear a path, melting away large clumps of snow obstructing their way. After clearing most of the snow behind the main building, they discovered the room housing the backup generator. Izuku opened the door and stepped inside, observing the generator for a moment. Revenant questioned the device's function, while Priscilla wondered if there was a 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐸 or perhaps some magic words needed to activate it. Izuku assured them that it only required a bit of power. He created a lightning spear and plunged it into the generator, providing enough energy to restore power not only to the entire school but also to a whole city district. Students cheered as the lights flickered back on, excitement filling the air as they celebrated their regained ability to see and use their phones. Nizu smiled, grateful for Izuku's efforts. Kirishima exclaimed that the power was back, while Denki celebrated his newfound visibility. Mina urged everyone to turn on the heaters, and Momo quickly complied. Izumi pondered who could have survived such a storm, to which Katsuki replied that he didn't care as long as they had power again. Kendo announced the return of the lights, and Pony joyfully declared it a Christmas miracle, though Rin reminded her that it was only September. Setsuna cautioned against spoiling the moment, while Nairenjiki speculated about who could endure such temperatures. Monoma confidently suggested that Endeavor must have been the one to restore the power. As the students celebrated, Izuku, Revenant, and Priscilla made their way toward the broken gates of 𝐸. Izuku suggested they leave, but Revenant reminded them they needed to figure out how to stop the storm. Priscilla explained that controlling nature's might was beyond mere mortals. In response, Izuku summoned the frenzied flame to create a mini-sun, which rapidly heated the area. Priscilla and Revenant watched in awe as the raging fire melted the snow around them. Izuku then launched the mini-sun into the sky and, once it reached a sufficient height, snapped his fingers, causing it to explode and effectively halting the snowstorm. The weather began to normalize, though the air felt warmer than usual due to the sun's explosion. Priscilla was astonished, realizing Izuku could create suns, while Revenant expressed her admiration. Izuku thanked them and suggested they head home. However, he was abruptly interrupted by a mace crashing down, knocking him to the ground and sending the two girls back. Revenant quickly recovered and faced an unfamiliar foe, drawing her dual great swords. She declared that no one would harm her companions and charged at the boss. The creature swung its mace, but she skillfully dodged and struck its back with both swords. Summoning Frederick, he swung his hammer, hitting the boss and knocking it to the side. Priscilla then dashed past the boss and struck the ground with her scythe, causing ice shards to erupt from the creature's body, making it roar in pain. The boss retreated, eyeing the two women warily, just as Izuku stood up and punched it, sending the creature crashing into the 𝐸 building wall. He recognized the creature as 𝗿rt, a long way from Boreal Valley. 𝗿rt emerged from the wall, roaring in defiance and charging at Izuku. Summoning his mortal katana, Izuku prepared for the attack. As 𝗿rt approached, he executed a technique known as One Mind, flash-stepping behind the creature and sheathing his katana. In an instant, 𝗿rt was struck multiple times in the same spot before collapsing and vanishing, indicating that the beast had been defeated. Izuku bid farewell to the ice creature, while Revenant noted the oddity of the beast being a dog in armor. Priscilla found the concept intriguing, and Izuku agreed, suggesting they return home to rest after their adventure. Unbeknownst to them, Nizu was on the phone, requesting to speak with the Japanese general. The scene shifted to a new day in Mizudafu, Japan, where Izuku awoke after the long snow day. He stretched and glanced at his growing group of friends, all peacefully sleeping beside him. He quietly left the bedroom and headed to the kitchen to prepare breakfast and coffee for everyone. After some time, he completed the meal and made himself a cup of coffee. Taking a seat on the couch, he savored a sip, feeling optimistic about the day ahead. Just as he was about to enjoy another sip, a loud knock at the door startled him. He rose from the couch, approached the front door, and opened it to find a large number of police officers, SWAT teams, pro heroes, and soldiers armed with heavy weaponry, along with tanks and helicopters, all aimed at him. Izuku felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. A voice boomed, introducing itself as General James Ironwood, instructing him to step outside with his hands raised. Izuku contemplated using a wind spell to disperse the crowd but decided to comply for now. He sighed, finished his coffee, and placed the mug down before walking toward the soldier with HNDCFFS, who quickly secured them around his wrists. Ironwood noted how easily Izuku complied, questioning Nizu's assessment of the boy's danger level. Nizu reassured him that Izuku was indeed powerful but seemed too tired to demonstrate it at the moment. Ironwood gave orders to take Izuku back to base number 552, and the soldiers escorted him into the back of a military truck, which drove away from the house as the police and heroes departed. Ironwood assured everyone that they would handle the situation, allowing them to go about their day. 𝐒𝐮𝐬, Izuku's mother, was left wondering where he had been taken. Ironwood reassured the woman that her child would be fine, explaining that they would ask him some questions before releasing him. All Might comforted her, stating that Izuku would be all right. Ironwood then invited Nizu to ride with him, to which Nizu agreed, leaving 𝐒𝐮𝐬 in charge of 𝐒𝐮𝐬 remarked that the situation had been surprisingly easy. 𝐿𝐴 echoed this sentiment, noting that they had prepared for nothing. Present Mike was about to suggest a celebration when a massive ghostly skeletal hand suddenly grabbed him and slammed him to the ground twice. The heroes turned to see Revenant accompanied by her ghostly allies. Revenant declared that everyone was asleep and Izuku was missing, meaning there was no one to stop her. Midnight questioned what she intended to do. Revenant unleashed a chilling screech, activating her ability known as Immortal March, causing half of her face to crack open, revealing a blue skull. In an instant, she blitzed towards Izuku, swinging her hammer and striking him in the chest, causing him to crash into a car, shocking the heroes. Present Mike attempted to call for everyone to regroup but was interrupted when Revenant bit his arm, eliciting a scream that left the others dazed while she continued her assault. Meanwhile, Izuku was being driven to base number 552, unsure of the situation but going along with it for now. He asked if anyone had food, lamenting that he hadn't eaten breakfast. The soldier in the front replied that there was none. The captain then warned that any conversation with the prisoner would result in punishment, which Izuku found amusing. When the captain demanded respect, Izuku responded with silence. Suddenly he headbutted the captain, knocking him out cold, much to the shock of the other soldiers. Izuku remarked that he didn't respect Toshinori or 𝐒𝐮𝐬, prompting a soldier to order him to sit back down, which he complied with for the remainder of the ride. Upon arriving at the military base, one of the soldiers woke Izuku from his nap, informing him they had arrived. As he stepped out of the truck, he was escorted inside by a group of soldiers toward the interrogation area. Inside, he noticed empty cells with blood stains on the floor and wondered if that was where he would be staying. A soldier urged him to keep moving until they reached a door, which opened to reveal an all-white room. Ironwood greeted him, asking if he still went by the name Yagi. Izuku clarified that he was now Izuku Midoriya, explaining that he had been disowned after being accused of wrongdoing. Ironwood suggested they focus on the present and future instead of the past. He inquired if Izuku knew where the portals were coming from, to which Izuku admitted he had no idea when or where they would appear. Ironwood pressed a button, causing a 𝐼𝐻 to emerge from the wall, swinging a club at Izuku. He dodged the attack, broke free from his HNDCFFS, and swiftly dispatched the 𝐼𝐻 with a dagger. Impressed, Ironwood released 6 more 𝐼𝐻 into the room. Izuku skillfully fought them off, using his agility and combat skills to eliminate each one. Afterward, Ironwood commended Izuku for his performance, suggesting he would make a fine soldier. Izuku declined the offer, stating he had dealt with heroes before and wouldn't mind doing so again. Nizu urged caution, while Ironwood chuckled at Izuku's sass. Izuku then asked Ironwood how long he had been holding the 𝐼𝐻 captive and how many other creatures were hidden in the base. Ironwood questioned why that mattered to him, to which Izuku responded that it was his goal to fix the portal situation for the city's safety. Ironwood acknowledged that the quarantine in Hosu City was indeed Izuku's doing, which surprised Nizu. Izuku confirmed that he had ensured no one could enter or exit the city. Ironwood, feeling challenged, insisted he was in charge and didn't need to answer Izuku's questions. Izuku clapped his hands together, creating an electrical shockwave that disrupted the base's power, opening all the doors and releasing Ironwood's creatures. Chaos erupted throughout the base as Nizu noted the power was out. Ironwood, frustrated, demanded to know what Izuku had done, but when he aimed a flashlight into the room, he found Izuku had vanished. Nizu informed Ironwood that the power was out, prompting Ironwood to express his frustration. He lifted 𝐒𝐮𝐬 to restore the power. Meanwhile, Izuku wandered through the base, using fire magic to illuminate his path while eliminating the 𝐼𝐻 that Ironwood had contained. He thought to himself that if Ironwood had one beast here, there were likely more at other military bases. Suddenly, a 𝐼𝐻 roared and hurled a spear at him. Izuku caught the spear, spun around, and sent it back, piercing the 𝐼𝐻's chest. Another 𝐼𝐻 lunged at him, but Izuku dodged and delivered a powerful hammer fist, breaking the creature's spine. As Izuku prepared to face more 𝐼𝐻, they all fell dead at once, revealing a figure standing behind them. Recognizing the blue moonlight aura surrounding the figure, he greeted 𝐼𝐻. She acknowledged him as her dear tarnished. Izuku sheathed his sword and embraced 𝐼𝐻, who wrapped her forearms around him. He inquired about her presence, and she explained that she had come in search of Blade but had been misled by the man in charge, who claimed they would help her find him if she used her magic. Izuku questioned why she stayed if she could have left, and 𝐼𝐻 admitted she had made some friends. Just then, the power returned, and Izuku extinguished his fire magic. A speaker announced Ironwood's orders to capture Izuku alive using tranquilizer darts. Izuku protested that he was not a wild animal. 𝐼𝐻 suggested introducing her friends before they left, and Izuku agreed. Suddenly, a group of soldiers spotted them. Izuku aimed his palm and unleashed a spell, firing glintstone nails that struck the soldiers in their shoulders, incapacitating them without causing fatal harm. He urged 𝐼𝐻 to lead the way. As 𝐼𝐻 smiled and guided him toward her friend's cells, they faced obstacles from the soldiers but eventually reached another cell where one of 𝐼𝐻's friends awaited. 𝐼𝐻 introduced 𝗟𝗏, who recognized Izuku. He mentioned that they had a long story to share once they escaped. 𝐼𝐻 insisted on an explanation after their getaway, and 𝗟𝗏 expressed excitement about finally leaving. Just then, soldiers shouted to open fire. 𝐼𝐻 and 𝗟𝗏 turned to see armed soldiers ready to shoot when Izuku conjured a gravity ball, pulling the soldiers toward it. The gravity ball exploded, sending the soldiers flying and leaving them unconscious. Izuku suggested they move quickly, and 𝐼𝐻 requested to be carried on his back. Crouched down for her to climb on and then picked up 𝗟𝗏, sprinting down the hall toward the last of 𝐼𝐻's friends while Ironwood monitored them through security cameras, bewildered by Izuku's actions. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 reminded Ironwood that Izuku was not someone to underestimate. Ironwood, frustrated, declared it was his duty to capture Izuku and initiated a lockdown, sealing the base. 𝐼𝐻 urged Izuku to take action against the noise. He closed his eyes, raised a finger, and summoned 𝐼𝐻's dark moon, leaving 𝐒𝐮𝐬 and Ironwood in shock. Izuku shattered the building's ceiling and began to levitate, drawing the attention of the soldiers outside as night enveloped the military base. Panic ensued among the soldiers as they fled for cover. Izuku directed the dark moon toward the ground, causing it to explode in a gust of icy wind and shards, demolishing the military base. As the smoke cleared, the trio surveyed the destruction. Izuku asked 𝐼𝐻 for the name of her other friend when a familiar voice called out to him. He turned to see Midoriya, who embraced him warmly. 𝐼𝐻 playfully pinched his cheeks, pouting as she questioned his relationship with her friends. Izuku promised to explain on their way when a hand burst from the ground, revealing a military war mech. Ironwood declared that Izuku was sentenced to death. Izuku, unfazed, flicked a gravitational missile at the mech, leaving Ironwood stunned as it struck, creating a large hole and causing him to bleed. Ironwood warned that this was not over, but the mech fell backward as Izuku walked away, leaving the ruined military base behind. He contemplated the possibility that Ironwood was hiding something at other military bases, realizing he would need to investigate them all. With a sigh, he decided he needed another cup of coffee. Night fell over the city of 𝐼𝐻, Japan, where guards patrolled a military base. One soldier shared the news that General Ironwood had been attacked and was undergoing surgery, while another expressed disbelief at the mention of magic. Magic wasn't real, or so they thought. The soldier, still in shock, wondered who would dare to destroy a military base. Izuku, however, was not crazy, he was just a guy who had faced many challenges. With swift precision, he incapacitated the two startled soldiers with a quick neck chop, rendering them unconscious. He dragged their bodies into a nearby bush and continued his stealthy approach, taking down soldiers effortlessly until he discovered an entrance through the base's sewer system. As he navigated the dark tunnel, the unpleasant smell reminded him of swamps. He pressed on, determined to infiltrate the base. Suddenly, a massive claw burst from the water, attempting to seize him. Izuku executed a front flip over the claw, spotting giant crawfish emerging from the murky depths. He summoned his Morning Star mace and leaped across the crawfish, landing safely on the other side. With a powerful swing, he struck the crawfish, cracking its shell and sending it crashing against the sewer walls. Using fire magic, he conjured 8 small fireballs and hurled them at the creature, igniting it and eliminating the threat. The smell of burnt seafood filled the air. Continuing through the sewers, Izuku discovered a hatch in the ceiling. He jumped up, pried it open, and poked his head through, finding himself in a bathroom. Climbing up, he made his way to the door, only to be confronted by a soldier who opened it unexpectedly. Without hesitation, Izuku incapacitated the soldier and stashed him in one of the stalls, emerging in the soldier's uniform. He stepped out of the bathroom, scanning the hall where soldiers were chatting. As he moved through the area, he pondered where magical artifacts might be hidden if he were in charge. Suddenly, the general's voice rang out, commanding the soldiers to stand at attention. The general informed them that General Ironwood was in surgery due to an assassination attempt and warned that the threat was still present. Once the general moved on, Izuku decided to follow him. Entering the mess hall, he saw the general speaking with a scientist. The general pressed for progress, but the scientist reported that one subject was uncooperative while the other was rambling nonsense. The general suggested more aggressive methods, which the scientist opposed. As the general walked away, the scientist noticed clothes on the floor, realizing someone might be running around without them. Descending a flight of stairs, the scientist found 2 figures in separate holding cells. He warned them that time was running out and demanded answers. One of the figures, defiant, dismissed the scientist's threats. Just then, Izuku appeared, swiftly incapacitating the scientist with a karate chop. He recognized the 2 figures. One was 𝗟𝗏, who greeted him with surprise, and the other was 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐬, the Emerald Herald. They exchanged pleasantries, and 𝗟𝗏 noted Izuku's continued maidenless status, which prompted a light-hearted response. Izuku learned that both had been captured by the soldiers. Determined to rescue them, he spotted a hand scanner and used the scientist's hand to unlock their cells. Grateful, 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐬 thanked him, while 𝗟𝗏 expressed relief at being free. Izuku inquired about their imprisonment, and 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐬 revealed that the general was interested in ☆𝗛𝐻𝐸 power. Concerned, Izuku urged them to leave quickly. Just then, the scientist returned, and Izuku swiftly subdued him before freeing another captive, Daisy, the doll. He instructed the group to stay close as they made their way back to the surface. As they navigated the base, alarms blared, and the general's voice echoed, announcing the escape of the prisoners. Soldiers soon spotted them, and Izuku reacted quickly, casting a spell that sent one soldier flying. With Daisy's guidance, they sprinted through the base, Izuku using his magic to incapacitate guards without causing permanent harm. Finally, they burst outside, only to be confronted by a formidable force: 40 soldiers, 10 Humvees, 3 tanks, and the general in a battle mech. The general commanded them to surrender, but Izuku stood firm, ready to make his move. Izuku raised his hand, conjuring a spell as the general and his soldiers prepared to fire. He swiftly lowered his hand, invoking the Land of Shadow incantation. Multiple golden portals appeared behind the 4, unleashing a barrage of golden blasts that struck the general's mech and the soldiers behind him, causing tanks and Humvees to be destroyed and sending numerous soldiers flying. After 2 minutes of golden blasts raining down, the incantation ceased, and Izuku surveyed the devastation left in his wake. He declared that the way was clear. 𝗟𝗏 praised him for his efforts, while 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐬 inquired about their next steps. Izuku instructed the 3 to head to a designated location, mentioning he still had work to do. Daisy wished him safe travels, noting it was a fine night for a hunt, to which Izuku agreed. He handed them a map, marking the location of the safe house, before setting off toward the next military base. Meanwhile, In the city of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷, Japan, Nizu observed Ironwood through a hospital window as he underwent surgery. He expressed concern about Izuku's actions, wondering if Izuku understood the gravity of the situation. Beatrice appeared, acknowledging Nizu's stress and sharing her thoughts on Ironwood's fate. She speculated that if Ironwood survived, he would seek revenge against Izuku, and if he did not, the project would likely end, with Izuku being labeled a villain regardless. Nizu understood the implications but noted they were dealing with unknown factors. He hinted at a proposal that might satisfy all parties, prompting Beatrice's interest. As Nizu shared his proposal, Izuku was at another military base, sprinting down the hall as alarms blared. He felt no inclination for stealth at that moment. A soldier shouted, but Izuku swiftly incapacitated him with a punch, sending him crashing to the ground. More soldiers arrived, firing at Izuku, who summoned 𝐒𝐻𝐬's great shield to block the bullets. He charged down the hallway, tackling 6 soldiers to the ground. After putting away the shield, he delivered an uppercut to a guard, then spun and threw him into 5 more soldiers, knocking them down. Izuku continued down the hallway, dodging bullets and striking soldiers with precision. The base commander, witnessing the chaos, panicked at the sight of Izuku's prowess. The commander received word from a scientist that their weapon was ready, prompting him to rush out of the security room. Izuku headbutted another guard and activated his shield once more to block incoming machine gun fire. He charged forward, shield bashing 5 soldiers into the ground. As he looked ahead, he was surprised to see a black knife assassin approaching, wearing a control collar. The collar's speaker commanded her to kill. The assassin lunged at Izuku, who shot 4 fire arrows at her. She ducked and dashed forward, moving her knife, but Izuku evaded and grabbed her arm, throwing her overhead. She landed on her feet and elbowed him in the face, staggering him. As she moved her knife again, Izuku blocked with a dagger and questioned her about her capture. The assassin attempted to respond, but the collar shocked her, forcing her to keep fighting. She charged at Izuku, aiming for a gut slash, but he backflipped away and summoned a lightning spear, throwing it at her. She ducked, narrowly avoiding the spear, only for Izuku to grapple her, lift her up, and slam her to the ground. Ignoring the electric shock from the collar, he ripped it off, freeing her from military control. The assassin expressed her gratitude by kneeling, and Izuku acknowledged her thanks. She then used her dagger to carve a message into the wall, explaining her capture while she was indisposed. Just then, a hand burst through the wall, grabbing Izuku and throwing him out of the building into a ring of blue fire. He quickly regained his footing as the commander in his power armor landed in the ring, declaring the power of Project Magi. Izuku was taken aback, realizing the commander had used magic. The commander confirmed this, challenging Izuku to make him reveal more. The commander charged at Izuku, throwing a punch that he narrowly dodged. Summoning a crescent axe, Izuku swung it, slicing off the commander's left leg. The commander fell, and Izuku began to pry open his armor. The commander called for backup as a tank rolled through the fire toward Izuku. He jumped on top of the tank, ripped open the hatch, and jumped inside. Setting the interior ablaze, he leaped out and spotted the commander attempting to escape in a truck. Determined to get answers, Izuku pursued, summoning Torrent to ride after the commander. As Izuku closed the distance, the commander fired a fireball at him, which he dodged. He leaped off Torrent, throwing a grappling hook into the military truck. He soared toward the commander, delivering a dropkick that sent him crashing to the ground. The truck swerved and collided with a tree. Izuku exited the truck and approached the commander, who was crawling away. He ripped open the commander's power armor and pulled him out, prompting the commander to plead for mercy. Izuku demanded to know more about Project Magi. The commander revealed the details of Project Magi, leaving Izuku in shock. He gripped the back of the commander's neck tightly, demanding to know where he had obtained his dose. The commander stammered about a girl dressed in black, with candle wax on her eyes, but Izuku interrupted him. In a swift motion, he used his katana to strike the side of the commander's neck, pulling the blade out as the commander fell, leaving Izuku to rush back to the base, hoping she was safe. Upon arriving at the base, Izuku headed toward the prison cells, but found them empty. Panic set in as he wondered where she could be. Suddenly, the head scientist appeared, holding a pistol to a figure's head, threatening Izuku. Without hesitation, Izuku fired his hunter pistol, shattering the scientist's hand and sending him to the ground. He rushed forward and embraced the figure, relieved to find it was Maya, the maiden in black. She weakly acknowledged him, revealing that the men had used her for their experiments. Taking her BLD, Izuku reassured her that she was safe now, but the scientist laughed, claiming that saving her wouldn't stop Project Magi. He boasted about 𝐼𝐻𝐽 powers from other worlds, but his words were cut short as the Black Knife assassin swiftly ended his life, seeking revenge for her past torment. Izuku expressed his surprise that she hadn't left, and she shook her head. He carefully placed Maya on his back and exited the base, but paused to look back, aiming his palm at the military facility. He charged up a spell, declaring his intent to burn it down. A powerful flame erupted from his hand, striking the base and engulfing it in flames, consuming everything in its path. As he walked away with Maya on his back, he reflected on the recklessness of those trying to 𝐼𝐻𝐽 magic through the BLD and souls of beings from other worlds, realizing that if the military continued their experiments, it could lead to catastrophic consequences. He resolved to put an end to their madness before it was too late. Later that night, on Dagobah Beach, a military research team prepared for their first actual test. The head scientist ensured everything was ready, and as the machine roared to life, excitement filled the air. However, joy quickly turned to horror as the machine malfunctioned, and the entity inside began to grow, releasing terrifying screeches. The soldiers and scientists were met with sights that no one should witness, and screams echoed across the beach. Meanwhile, a girl on a nearby boat observed the chaos through binoculars, bewildered by the unfolding horror. As the screams intensified, she felt a wave of dread wash over her, causing her to collapse to her knees. The captain rushed to her side, concerned about her reaction. Both were struck by the creature's cries, prompting the captain to flee from the beach as fast as possible. Back on the beach, the creature broke free from its confinement, destroying the machine and leaving the chaos behind. The next day, a military cleanup crew worked to cover up the scene before anyone could discover what had happened. Tension filled the air as soldiers urged the cleaners to hurry. One cleaner, frustrated, tossed a scientist into the back of a truck filled with mutated bodies, but as they prepared to leave, they realized one body was missing. Panic ensued as they searched for the missing corpse, only to discover it by the shore. As one cleaner reached for it, a tentacle shot out, striking him down. Chaos erupted as the remaining bodies sprang to life, attacking the cleaners and soldiers. The soldiers fought back, but the creatures were too swift and deadly. In the ensuing chaos, soldiers began to retreat, but many were overwhelmed, facing a grim fate as the creatures continued their assault. As the monsters began to chase the cleaners, one of them shouted in alarm, warning the others of their approach. In a desperate attempt to call for help, one cleaner was suddenly grabbed by a tentacle and pulled back, while the remaining cleaners fled in panic, falling victim to the creatures one by one until only one was left. This last cleaner found himself ensnared by a tentacle, being drawn toward the monstrous horde, pleading for assistance. A fire arrow soared through the air, striking one of the monsters and igniting it in flames. The other creatures recoiled from the burning figure, which screeched in agony before collapsing. Standing atop a rocky outcrop, Izuku readied a crossbow mounted on his wrist, contemplating the nature of the creatures he faced. With determination, he activated the crossbow's rapid-fire mode, unleashing a barrage of flaming arrows that struck the monsters, causing them to writhe and scream as they burned. Some of the parasites noticed Izuku and charged at him. In response, he summoned a katana known as the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 and dashed toward the nearest parasite. One leaped into the air, launching a tendril at him, but Izuku deftly dodged and severed the creature's arm. Another parasite retaliated by sending both its arms at him, but he backflipped out of range, igniting the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 in flames. With incredible speed, he zipped past the two monsters, slicing them in half as they erupted into fire. One parasite stabbed its arm into the sand, propelling itself underground toward Izuku. He executed a front flip, driving his 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 into the creature's chest, which burned away as it perished. The last 4 parasites converged on him, attempting to overwhelm him. However, Izuku unleashed a torrent of flames so intense that 3 of the parasites disintegrated, while the last screeched in pain before turning to ash. Taking a moment to catch his breath, he extinguished the flames to prevent further destruction and approached the last remaining cleaner. The cleaner expressed gratitude for being saved, but his words were abruptly cut off when Izuku struck him, breaking his mask. Grabbing the cleaner by the collar, Izuku pressed a blunderbuss to his chin and demanded an explanation for their presence. The cleaner stammered that they had been sent to eliminate evidence of a failed project involving scientists, though he didn't know the specifics. Izuku's mind raced with the implications, suspecting a connection to eldritch beings. He ordered the cleaner to find a new job and tossed him aside, watching as he fled. Izuku surveyed the charred remains of the parasites, realizing they had once been scientists. He pondered what they had been experimenting with and began investigating the device, noting the white BLD stains inside and outside a shattered glass box. Following a trail of white BLD, he discovered it led to the shoreline, indicating that whatever had escaped had made its way into the sea. Frustrated, he stood at the water's edge, contemplating the situation before deciding to dive in. Stripping down, Izuku plunged into the water, searching for any abnormalities in the marine life. He swam beneath the surface until he noticed a peculiar sight, a group of fish standing upright, vibrating as they faced the surface. Realizing something was amiss, he continued his exploration. Suddenly, a fish swam directly in front of him, and he noticed more behind it, revealing themselves to be parasite fish. Acting quickly, he froze the first fish solid as the others lunged at him. He fought to fend them off, pulling them from his body and freezing them one by one until none remained. Though covered in bite marks, he pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. Izuku continued to search the reef and soon spotted an underwater cave. Swimming closer, he discovered a sunken ship, the Oki Mariner, the vessel of the hero 𝐒𝐮𝐬. Entering the cave, he found it dark but pressed on, reminding himself to keep swimming. Suddenly, a bright blue light appeared in the distance, but he was cautious and created an ice spear, launching it at the light. The resulting roar echoed through the cave as a massive angler leviathan emerged, its mouth wide open, ready to swallow him. Izuku extended a finger, and as he touched one of the leviathan's teeth, it began to freeze instantly. The creature transformed into a solid ice statue and fell to the cave floor. Grateful for the magic he had learned, he swam deeper into the cave until he spotted a bright white light. Approaching it, he was engulfed by the radiance. When the light faded, he found himself no longer submerged in water but standing in cool air, realizing he had arrived in the fishing hamlet, bewildered by the sudden change in surroundings. Izuku found himself back in the fishing hamlet, bewildered by his sudden return to this place. He took a few steps forward when he was suddenly ensnared by an eel man. The creature let out a piercing scream and unleashed a jolt of electricity, causing Izuku to stagger. It then bit down on his head and hurled him into a fishing boat, splintering it in half. Spotting a glob of electric spit, Izuku managed to dodge it and summoned his 𝐒𝐮𝐬 as he charged at the eel man. However, another eel man leaped at him, slashing his left cheek and sending him crashing into the dock water. Quickly resurfacing, Izuku saw one of the eel men lunging at him. In a swift motion, he drew a flintlock and aimed it at the creature's mouth, firing a shot that took it down. Just as he was about to escape the water, something yanked him below the surface. In a panic, he fired blindly, grazing the creature as he caught a glimpse of the angler men lurking nearby. One of the angler men swam towards him, flashing its forehead light and temporarily blinding Izuku. Seizing the opportunity, the angler man bit into Izuku's side, taking a chunk out of him. 4 more angler men approached, but Izuku dashed out of the water, summoning 2 lightning spears. He hurled them into the depths, frying the angler men instantly. Landing on solid ground, Izuku spotted the eel man that had bitten him. He summoned a Gatling gun and unleashed a barrage of bullets, riddling the eel man with firepower. Feeling a surge of satisfaction, he remarked on the warm welcome he received before moving toward the entrance of the fishing hamlet. As he walked, he noticed fish people wandering around. One of the fishmen spotted him and called out, but Izuku swiftly gunned it down. More fishmen charged at him, but he continued forward, letting the Gatling gun rip through their ranks. Bodies fell as he advanced, and he eventually stopped to spray the entire hamlet with bullets, surveying the destruction he had caused and feeling a sense of relief. Suddenly, a voice called out, startling him. It was Sirius, who was hiding. She expressed disbelief at his humanity, urging him to stay away. Izuku, sensing a trap, decided to investigate further. He drank from his healing flask, mending his wounds, and approached her voice with his weapons ready. Sirius insisted he was one of the creatures, but he pressed on, determined to find her. As he searched, he spotted her on a rooftop, about to jump. He rushed forward and caught her just in time, saving her life. Sirius was overwhelmed with emotion, crying and pleading for him to help her escape. She revealed her disorientation, not knowing how long she had been trapped in the hamlet or even if it was day or night. Izuku reassured her that he would get her out. Just then, Sirius panicked, sensing something lurking nearby. They hid behind a crab cage as Izuku peeked out to see a towering eel man with the eyeless head of Sirius, its tongue mimicking her voice. It called for help, sending chills down their spines. Sirius trembled, and Izuku, determined to protect her, grabbed a harpoon and launched it at the creature. The harpoon struck true, causing the mimic eel to screech in pain. Izuku charged at it with his saw cleaver, slicing it in half. Though still alive, the creature lunged at him, but he swiftly grabbed it by the neck and delivered a final blow, ending its threat. Sirius was astonished that he had actually killed it, but she was also confused by his calm demeanor amidst the chaos. She pointed out his lack of clothing, prompting him to find some old fisher clothes hanging nearby. Once dressed, he continued through the hamlet, with Sirius closely following him. As they walked, Izuku pondered the strange circumstances that had brought him here. Sirius explained how she had been on a ship when chaos erupted, witnessing people transform into something monstrous. Izuku listened intently, determined to uncover the truth behind their predicament. Their journey led them to a figure emerging from the fog, whom both recognized as Captain 𝗟𝗟. He greeted them warmly, claiming to have found a way out. However, Izuku felt a sense of unease and grabbed Sirius's arm to stop her from rushing after him. He expressed his distrust, prompting Sirius to question his judgment. 𝗟𝗟 called out again, urging them not to keep him waiting, but Izuku remained skeptical, insisting they stick together. The laughter of 𝗟𝗟 and his crew echoed ominously, leaving them both on edge. As the Oki mariner broke free from Izuku's grasp, she sprinted toward the fog. Sirius called out to her companions, urging them to hold on. Suddenly, Izuku threw a chain that wrapped around Sirius, pulling her to the ground as he unleashed a barrage of fire into the mist. Sirius pleaded with him to stop, expressing her fear that he would harm their crew. After a brief moment of silence, she questioned his actions, reminding him that there was a way out. Izuku coldly replied that it was too late. Sirius was devastated, realizing the truth of his words. She looked in horror as 𝗟𝗟 and the rest of the crew emerged from the fog, their bodies riddled with wounds. In disbelief, she called out to them, but Izuku insisted that they were no longer her crew. Sirius was paralyzed with fear as 𝗟𝗟 and the others began to transform grotesquely, tearing their own heads apart to reveal new forms. They beckoned her to join them, promising eternal togetherness. Sirius was overwhelmed, her heart breaking at the sight of her friend's transformation. 𝗟𝗟 approached her with a twisted smile, but before he could reach her, Izuku aimed his minigun and opened fire. To his shock, 𝗟𝗟 stood unharmed, absorbing the bullets. In a desperate attempt, 𝗟𝗟 lunged at Izuku, who narrowly dodged the attack. A crew member swung a bone blade at him, but Izuku ducked and retaliated, cutting the crew member down. Another crew member attempted to ensnare him with a hooked tongue, but Izuku caught it and used it to strike 𝗟𝗟, who howled in pain. 𝗟𝗟 retaliated, swatting Izuku away, then turned back to Sirius, his grin widening. He proclaimed that she would become one of them. Sirius was horrified at the thought. Just as 𝗟𝗟 reached out with a strange, tendril-like arm to begin her transformation, Izuku seized the opportunity. He plunged his 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 into 𝗟𝗟's back, eliciting a distorted cry of agony. With a swift motion, he sliced upward, then leaped to stab 𝗟𝐾𝐿 between the eyes, yanking the tendril from his mouth as 𝗟𝐾𝐿 let out one final, anguished roar before collapsing. Sirius snapped back to reality, witnessing 𝗟𝐾𝐿's lifeless body on the ground. Izuku moved swiftly, dispatching the remaining crew members until only the two of them remained. He expressed his regret that she had to witness such horror. Sirius, still in shock, acknowledged the loss of her crew. Izuku reassured her that he had spared them from further suffering, but the weight of their absence hung heavily in the air. Sirius pondered the events that had unfolded, her mind racing with thoughts of mortality. Izuku, sensing her turmoil, offered her a moment of respite as he sat by the water fountain, leaving her to grapple with the reality of what had just transpired. They would escape this place together. Sirius hoped it would be the second chance they needed. Izuku sharpened his katana and saw 𝗟𝐿𝐬, preparing his Gatling gun while gazing at the persistent fog ahead. He was all too familiar with what lay beyond it, but he didn't want to leave her alone out there. He urged Sirius to follow him, and she complied. As they walked through the fog, they emerged into an arena-like area, where they encountered a towering figure, the Fisher Chief, a massive 14-foot-tall creature from the fishing hamlet. The chief spoke ominously, claiming that a dark force demanded BLD. He raised his trident, causing geysers to erupt from the water. Izuku quickly grabbed Sirius, guiding her to safety before charging at the Fisher Chief. The chief moved his trident down, but Izuku nimbly dodged to the side, running up the trident's length. He swung his 𝐒𝐮𝐬, slicing across the chief's face. The Fisher Chief let out a roar of pain as Izuku plunged his weapon into the chief's right eye, sliding down and inflicting further damage. The chief staggered back, stabbing his trident into the ground and unleashing a wave of water toward Izuku, who performed a front flip over it and fired an explosive arrow from his wrist-mounted crossbow, striking the chief in the left eye. Sirius watched in awe as Izuku fought valiantly, thinking that if he kept this up, they would soon be free. Izuku landed gracefully and summoned a powerful red lightning bolt, launching it at the Fisher Chief. The bolt struck true, hitting the chief in the chest, followed by several more strikes. The chief let out a final scream before collapsing. As Izuku landed, Sirius rushed to him, embracing him in celebration. He acknowledged their victory, but before he could say more, a voice warned them of an impending fall. Suddenly, both Izuku and Sirius found themselves tumbling to the wet ground as darkness enveloped them. When they opened their eyes again, they were on a shore, confronted by the being responsible for their ordeal. The figure emerged from the water, revealing itself as the spawn of 𝗏𝐻, who claimed that Izuku's BLD would resurrect a blessed lady. The spawn crawled toward him, but Izuku felt paralyzed, accepting his fate until a familiar scream pierced the air, sending chills through him and startling the spawn. Sirius asked what the noise was, and Izuku recognized it all too well. The spawn of 𝗏𝐻 searched for the source of the sound, but before it could react, a figure burst from the fog, striking the spawn and freeing Izuku and Sirius from its control. They looked on in astonishment at the newcomer, the orphan of 𝗏𝐻. Izuku explained that this was the true spawn of 𝗏𝐻, while the other claimed to be the genuine article. The orphan unleashed a powerful scream, and lightning struck the false spawn. It lunged at the false spawn, delivering a series of devastating blows. The false spawn attempted to regain its footing, but Izuku seized the moment, attacking with his dragon tooth and striking the false spawn in the forehead. The false spawn, shocked and desperate, tried to retaliate, but Izuku overpowered it, asserting that he was no mere mortal but one who had faced many trials. He raised his weapon high as the orphan lunged forward, ready to strike. In that moment, the false spawn realized its end was near. With a final, coordinated attack, Izuku and the orphan struck down the false spawn, ending its threat. As its body fell lifeless to the ground, the orphan let out a triumphant scream, and Izuku smiled, knowing that the orphan's mother would be proud. Sirius hesitantly asked if they were safe now, but Izuku whispered that they should run before the orphan turned its attention to them. Just then, the orphan twisted its neck and charged at Izuku, swinging its weapon. Izuku managed to parry the blow, but the orphan continued its relentless assault. Izuku dodged and blocked with precision, but as he jumped back, The orphan closed the distance, biting into his shoulder. Izuku retaliated with a punch, staggering the creature. He noticed the arena beginning to collapse, realizing they needed to escape quickly. Sirius urged Izuku to leave, insisting he should escape while he could. Izuku, determined, promised to buy her time and then took off. As he glanced back at the orphan of 𝐾𝐻, he dropped his dragon tooth mace and cracked his knuckles, which caught the orphan's attention. The orphan glared at Izuku, growling in challenge. Izuku taunted the orphan, inviting him to fight like they used to. With a fierce scream, the orphan charged at Izuku, who met him head-on. While the two legends clashed, Sirius ran for her life, witnessing the fishing hamlet disintegrating around her. She sprinted until she spotted a fishing boat bobbing on the water. Hopping in, she began to row as fast as she could. Once she had put some distance between herself and the chaos, she turned to see the hamlet crumbling, but then a bright light caught her attention. She shielded her eyes, and when the light faded, she found herself back at the beach she had been patrolling. Overjoyed, Sirius realized she was surrounded by people again, exclaiming her happiness at finally being home. She rowed to shore, leaping from the boat and embracing the sandy beach, expressing her longing for the tropical breeze. Suddenly, she noticed 4 detectives standing nearby. Clearing her throat, she acknowledged them. They confirmed her identity as a member of the pro-hero 𝐒𝐮𝐬 crew and instructed her to come with them. Confused and defensive, Sirius protested her innocence, but the detectives insisted she comply without making it difficult. Before they could leave the beach, an explosion erupted from the sea, drawing everyone's attention. Sirius spotted Izuku, bloodied but smiling, and was taken aback by his survival. The orphan of 𝐾𝐻 emerged from the water, screaming and disoriented. Izuku called out, urging the orphan to continue the fight. The orphan lunged at Izuku, who skillfully dodged a punch, only to be drop-kicked and sent crashing onto the beach. The orphan, now on the water's surface, charged at Izuku, and chaos ensued as lightning struck the beach, causing panic among the onlookers. Izuku quickly regained his footing, dodging the orphan's attacks. He countered with a spinning kick that connected, sending the orphan sprawling into the sand. Just as Izuku prepared to press the advantage, one of the detectives used a taser on him, which only served to irritate him. He responded with a powerful kick that sent the detective crashing against a bus. Turning back to the orphan, who was now staring at him, Izuku made an unexpected gesture, embracing the orphan in a hug. The orphan seemed to enjoy the moment before gradually fading away with a soft groan. Sirius, still processing the events, asked what had just happened. Izuku explained that a new bond had formed, revealing that the orphan of 𝐾𝐻 had become an ally. The story was far from over,